A lot of people spend Saturday mornings snacking with friends or running errands and joining us here. But some head to a different location, a neglected cemetery. Meg Dalton reports from one cemetery in New Haven, Connecticut, where volunteers are trying to breathe new life into this space.
Hi. Are you here for the cleanup? If you want to just park so that we're not blocking, that would be great.
Cheryl Baldwin walks down a leafy hill. Before her are rows and rows of white stones sticking out of the ground, about the size of a sheet of paper.
I refer to them as like baby teeth because they are not coming in straight necessarily.
Those baby teeth are actually gravestones in a small potter's field called Blake Street Cemetery.
It's where poor people were buried when they couldn't afford it themselves.
The cemetery is small, about an acre. The gravestones are obscured by long grass, overgrown weeds, fallen trees, and a lot of trash.
So I have bags and sticks for picking up things.
This morning, Baldwin and two other regular volunteers are here for a litter cleanup at the cemetery.
And I think the place to start is probably maybe around the fence line, if you don't see anything in the side, and then along sort of the wooded area.
Julia Gambale has a bag in one hand and a trash grabber in the other.
What is this, Triscuit, Oreo? Trident. See, they like having fresh breath, but just, pick up after yourselves.
Gambale walks over to the side of the cemetery and spots something unexpected.
Looks like somebody's homework is over here. A little bit of homework, that goes in the bag. What else? I don't know what this is. More homework?
Another volunteer, Laura Lynn, already has a full trash bag.
I found a lot of candy wrappers, potato chip bag wrappers, an empty bottle, an empty can, piece of glass that I just picked up.
Today, they're mostly picking up small pieces of trash. But at past litter cleanups, they've found air conditioners, even tires. Neglected cemeteries like this one are common in many parts of the United States. But people like Lynn, Gambale, and Baldwin are trying to bring new life back to these spaces. They're part of a growing social movement of so-called cemetery citizens. That's a term coined by Adam Rosenblatt. He's an anthropologist and author of a book about cemetery citizens. According to him, cemetery citizens are people working to restore and honor systemically neglected cemeteries. Some volunteers do this work for personal reasons, like Gambale.
My dad actually worked in a cemetery for his whole life. And I just learned to really love and respect cemeteries, the history, the architecture.
Baldwin says every person's motivations are unique, but they have a shared goal: to reinsert these spaces into the social fabric.
Everybody's got different things and different ways of honoring those that have passed. Cemeteries are definitely sacred places.
Baldwin hopes Blake Street Cemetery becomes a place not only for the dead, but for the living. For NPR News, I'm Meg Dalton in New Haven, Connecticut.
And thanks to Luis de Leon for recording Birdsong for that story.
Why haven't you learned anything?
As the school year is coming to a close, a new analysis shines yet another harsh spotlight on what's being called a learning recession for America's students. And it's a problem that started long before the pandemic. That's according to the latest National Education Scorecard, which is an annual deep dive into data about kids in grades K through 12. The findings of this report are sobering. Children had a steady decline in math and reading scores beginning all the way back to 2013, which happens to be when smartphones and social media really took off. Compared to a decade ago, math scores today are down in 70% of school districts. Reading scores are down in 83%. Scores have climbed a bit since 2022, but nowhere close to making up all the lost ground. In fact, 8th grade reading scores are now at their lowest level since 1990. I spoke recently with Thomas Kane. He's one of the authors of the scorecard and a professor at Harvard University. I started by asking him what stood out most about this latest report.
So the pandemic was just the mudslide that followed 7 years of steady erosion in student achievement. It was as if, when Congress dismantled test-based accountability at the end of the No Child Left Behind Act, it was as if they turned off the smoke alarms just at the time when social media was setting fire to students' learning time outside of school.
There are lots of known issues about K-12 education in America, but what problems are most pronounced, in your view, that contribute to this really grim report?
So when I tell my kids that we used to be able to smoke on airplanes, they're incredulous. And I think when they tell their kids 20 years from now that we allowed unfettered access to cell phones inside schools and outside of schools, I think their kids are going to have the same reaction.
Really, it's that profound.
But it's not just about cell phone bans. So actually, the early evidence on the effect of cell phone bans is that they are having modest effects on student achievement.
Right.
What that implies is that the mechanism by which social media are slowing student achievement gains, it's not just through distracting kids in class. It's about how they're using time outside of school. It's about sleep disruption. It's about missing homework. It's about just doing less reading in general. And the states that are turning things around by focusing on early literacy and requiring more reading inside of school to counteract the fact that kids are doing less reading outside of school.
It's so interesting you bring that up. We know, as you were mentioning, some states have been able to turn this around, Mississippi being one of them. My colleague talked earlier with Dr. Lance Evans. He's the superintendent of the schools in Mississippi. Here's how he said they approach reading and math.
We have an array of coaches. So we have literacy coaches, we have math coaches, we have literacy coaches in special education, we have leadership coaches, we have data coaches. We have, let's just use the literacy coaches as a continued example, because the same methodology is used for our math coaches as our literacy coaches. What we do is we hire some number of coaches. At this case, we've got about 85 of them. Our literacy coaches are typically in our schools, some 2 days a week, some 3 days a week. It just kind of depends on the proximity. But it's not a thing where they're in there like once a month. I mean, they are working hand in hand with teachers, with administrators.
That is a lot of coaches augmenting what teachers are doing. How replicable is something like that?
So the key that is to the Mississippi system is not just the coaches. It's that the adults in the system are being held accountable for student results.
The adults meaning the parents or the administrators?
It's the administrators, it's the school district leaders, it's even the state leaders. Honestly, I think one of the challenges we've faced since the end of the No Child Left Behind Act is that we're not holding our leaders accountable to the results. It's not just teachers and students that are being held accountable when we publish students' results. It's the school district leaders, it's the governors, it's the state legislators that are all being held responsible for trying to help students catch up.
There were also declines shown in both wealthier districts and what we'd call poorer districts, implying that money isn't the sole issue either.
So it's clearly money is not the sole issue. It's part of the issue, honestly. So the literacy coaches cost money. The math coaches cost money. Summer learning and high-dosage tutoring are another couple of strategies that districts have been using. But it's about focusing on student outcomes and being honest with people about where students stand. I mean, one of the striking things, William, is that we only sort of woke up to what's been happening recently. This is a decline that started more than a decade ago. And honestly, the reason why it sort of slipped under the radar screen all this time is because we weren't holding folks accountable for student results. And that, honestly, I think is going to be the first step, is when states and governors and state legislatures say, hey, look, we're going to be held accountable for what's happening with our students' achievement. And we're going to expect local leaders to be accountable too.
You mentioned earlier that us getting away from testing might have been one of the contributing factors here. But a lot of people look at the testing regimen and the teaching for the tests as that wasn't great either. What do you say to those people?
So we looked at what happened prior to 2013, prior to the recent declines. A lot of people don't realize prior to 2013, there was a 2 grade equivalent increase in 4th grade and 8th grade math achievement since 1990. And the states that saw the biggest improvement during that time period, if you looked at the folks born in those states, they had higher earnings, higher educational attainment, lower teen motherhood, lower arrest rates.
Across the board benefits.
So it's not just test scores. Test scores are a leading indicator to future outcomes. It's not the only thing that matters, but test scores clearly matter.
Does this suggest other solutions? Does your report help schools say, here are some other things that we could be doing?
So one of the key things, probably the lowest hanging fruit, is trying to lower student absenteeism. Absenteeism is not the cause of the decline, but it is one of the things that is slowing the recovery.
How bad is it?
So about 25% of students still are chronically absent. So missing 10%.
A quarter of kids.
Missing 10% of the school year or more.
Wow.
And that's up from before the pandemic. And so one of the first things that we can do is just try to get that back down at least to the pre-pandemic levels.
Tom Kane, Harvard University, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
That's why we have to think as black people. Stop singing and dancing and start thinking.
Wow.
Thinking and reading. I say reading is more important than watching TV.
A former English teacher going viral after posting a raw and unfiltered farewell video as she leaves the classroom behind after just 3 years. Listen.
A lot of these kids don't know how to read because they have had things read to them, or they can click a button and have something read out loud to them. I just don't think these kids even care. They don't care about making a difference in the world. They don't care about how to have a resume. They don't care how to write a resume. They don't care how to write a cover letter because ChatGPT will just do it for them. And I think that we need to cut off technology from these kids probably until they go to college.
Hannah is a former teacher, and she joins us now. She posted that video. More than 1 million people have seen it, Hannah, probably more by the time we're on this morning. Why did you post that video?
So I taught for 3 years, as I said in my video. I wasn't always a teacher. I actually started my career in digital marketing. So I've been in the digital world for about 5 years now, or since I've graduated. And throughout the 3 years, I've taught digital arts classes and I've taught an English class. And I would say that in all of my teaching experience, technology has posed quite a challenge. And with AI becoming so accessible to children nowadays, especially teaching in an English or Core 4 classroom, it's been especially challenging kind of to have the kids comprehend and critical think and think for themselves on certain things. Yeah. So on my way out, I wanted to kind of raise awareness and just let people know how AI and technology is affecting their children these days.
Right. I know, coming from a mother who taught for 33 years, my sister's a teacher in South Carolina, the challenges that y'all deal with, this is even before AI was a thing. I'm sure it's even more challenging now. And clearly, your opinion is, yes, it is. You're a high school teacher. I'm sure your students loved you. We hate to see someone leave education because of problems within the classroom. Give me some examples of what the students are saying to you.
Well, a lot of students, and I do want to be clear, I taught a lot of very motivated and bright children. And so I don't want this to come off as if this is all the kids' fault. But I do know that a lot of times in my English classroom, I would ask them to write down a short response or just 5 sentences to answer a question. And a lot of times it would be about 2.5 sentences and they would say, well, I can't think of anything else to say, or, well, why do I have to answer in complete sentences? Like, you get the point from what I'm saying in just this little sentence. And then a lot of times I would assign essays, long form essays, and I know how children write, especially when they handwrite me things in the beginning of the school year. And so when a student, how I know how they write, typically would give me a very eloquently and thorough essay on a topic that I know that normally wouldn't come from them, I would ask them, was this really you? And I'd run it through an AI generator. And of course, it would say 100% ChatGPT or AI. And I would speak to the student and they would more so question of, well, if I have to redo this, how much is it really going to affect my grade? Can I just take the 0?
Gosh, trying to take the easy way out. Yeah.
Right.
Is it promoting just a laziness among our children?
I suppose. And a lot of them are just feeling as though they don't really need to do the work anymore because AI will just do it for them.
Right.
And I think that AI can be in a classroom in a very effective way if we teach children in the older grades how to use it properly. But if we're allowing them this unlimited access in the classroom to use AI, they're not going to do the work themselves.
Yeah, I know you're a proponent of getting technology out of our classrooms, getting the phones out of our classrooms. I still can't believe some schools are allowing that. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry you had to leave the classroom. What are you going to do next?
Yes, well, I actually am working in a nonprofit now. I run donor relations, development, and digital marketing for them. So I'm back in what I was doing before teaching, and I'm loving it so far.
All right. Well, Hannah, thank you for giving up those 3 years. Appreciate it. We love our teachers.
Thinking and reading. I say reading is more important than watching TV.
Libraries across the country are having a hard time buying new books. That's because earlier this year, Baker and Taylor, the nation's largest library book distributor, stopped selling them.
I think a lot of people weren't prepared for the shutdown.
Kip Roberson is director of library services for Teton County Library in Wyoming. His library uses Ingram Content Group, another book distributor. Baker and Taylor faced several financial challenges leading up to its closure. Roberson says that after the shutdown,
if you wanted to order materials for your library, Ingram was the only game in town for the most part. Libraries were scrambling to set up accounts, learn the software.
Regular shipments for new books now take longer to get to libraries.
Everything slowed down. 3 days was the norm for getting books to us, and it would be 10 days, 2 weeks.
So if you're sitting on a long wait list at your local library for the latest John Grisham or Nora Roberts book, be patient. Kate Laughlin is executive director of the Association for Rural and Small Libraries.
If you put in your request for 20 copies of the latest title in the series that everybody's waiting for, but they'll only send you 10 instead of 20 because they've got this huge demand suddenly that they didn't have before, we're going to feel it in those wait lines.
She says Baker and Taylor provided more than just the books themselves.
You could get the books already wrapped in Mylar and with a barcode or an RFID tag already inserted in it. It served a number of purposes for libraries where they didn't have the capacity nor the staffing.
Now libraries are working to fill the gaps. That includes turning to Amazon to fill book orders.
The libraries do what they need to do to meet the needs of their collection and their community.
Because she says libraries' #1 priority is serving their patrons.
That's why we have to think as black people. Stop singing and dancing and start thinking.
And now for our final story. A new study has revealed that the human brain may not fully enter adult mode until the age of 32. This study challenges the long-held idea of about when adolescence truly ends. This study was published in the journal Nature Communications. Now, the research mapped nearly 4,000 brain scans of people aged from infancy to 90 years old. After mapping the brain scans, the study identified 5 major phases of brain development. Now, according to the study, the brain passes through childhood from birth to age 9, adolescence from 9 to 32, adulthood from 32 to 66, early aging from 66 to 83, and late aging after 83. Researchers also identified 4 major turning points in brain development at around the ages of 9, 32, 66, and 83. Scientists found that adolescence is marked by continuous refinement of the brain by improving its connections, thinking, and learning skills. It is only around the age of 32 that intelligence and personality begin to stabilize and plateau, marking the start of adulthood. Now, in the early 30s, the brain's connections fully shift into adult mode, starting a phase that lasts for more than 30 years. One of the senior authors of the study also spoke about the phases that the human brain goes through.
Looking back, many of us feel our lives have been characterized by different phases. It turns out that brains also go through these eras. Understanding that the brain's structural journey is not a question of steady progression, but rather one of a few major turning points, will help us identify when and how its wiring is vulnerable to disruption.
Researchers noted that the findings could improve understanding of mental health vulnerabilities, as many disorders first emerge during the long adolescent phase. The study also highlighted that later turning points in life are linked to declining brain connectivity and aging-related changes in white matter in the deep tissue of the brain. White matter is the brain's communication system that connects different parts of the brain. It helps them send information across paths quickly. This is not the first time studies have challenged the traditional understanding of adulthood phases. In 2018, the Lancet Medical Journal report stated that adolescence ended in the 20s. And with this new study, this has been delayed to the 30s. The World Health Organization currently identifies adolescents as between the ages of 10 and 18, but the new findings challenge traditional definitions of adolescence.
Little brother, I heard y'all ain't hitting in New York. Word. I heard y'all ain't hitting in L.A. Word, word. I heard y'all ain't hitting in North Carolina. North Carolina.
New tonight, a WCNC Charlotte investigation has uncovered a series of failures that led to an injustice and cost an innocent man his career.
WCNC Charlotte's Nate Morabito's now learned that a former teacher and football coach is suing the city of Charlotte and some of its police officers, accusing them of negligence and malicious prosecution.
In this lawsuit, which is backed by court records, a Graham, North Carolina man says Charlotte-Mecklenburg police arrested the right suspect but misidentified him in the system. Despite early doubts, fingerprinting at the jail, and the correct defendant's name and criminal history in the case file, this mistake turned into a conviction that ended up on the wrong person's record. Whether on the ball field,
we grew up literally 2 doors down from each other,
or in the sandbox,
we played with action figures together.
Kendrick Gonzalez says he and Kamardrick Sherrod,
somebody that came to every birthday, his dad was like a father figure to me,
were inseparable as kids. Then, in middle school, everything changed.
He went one way, I went another way.
Gonzalez's path eventually brought him back to middle school as a teacher and football coach in Alamance County. Where he says on an afternoon in 2023,
I was literally in the middle of practice.
Everything came full circle in the worst possible way.
I received a phone call from HR and she said, hey, you need to get off the field immediately. All of the kids kind of heard the conversation and the coaching staff as well. So it was extremely embarrassing.
It all started almost 2 hours away at a Charlotte hotel. That's where CMPD arrested this man, Kamardrick Sherrod, for possessing heroin, breaking and entering, and resisting police. Jail records show he first gave officers a false name and then lied again, saying he was actually Kendrick Gonzalez. So these are pictures of you and him?
Yes, sir.
You look nothing alike.
Absolutely not.
Records show when they pulled a record of Gonzalez's license, they did not believe the picture matched the man in custody, but proceeded anyway. The Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office says detention officers fingerprinted Sherrod, as is protocol, and were given the correct name. Yet when it was time to set his bond, records show the wrong name was still in the system. At the time, a magistrate noted the courts were unsure of his identity. Within 2 weeks, records show Sherrod pleaded guilty to a breaking or entering charge under Gonzalez's name. even though a sentencing worksheet from the very same day listed the right person, along with his lengthy criminal history.
It was just devastating to me.
Gonzalez would only find out after the conviction went through.
I was just stunned.
His shock grew even more when he learned it was Sherrod, his childhood friend. Not only did Sherrod betray him, the justice system allowed him to do it.
And I'm like, how could something like this happen?
Sometimes these things happen where people use other people's name, but I've never seen it get this far.
Dominique Cam represents Gonzalez. They filed a lawsuit against the city and officers involved for not doing more to get it right.
The ball has been dropped to multiple places, but it starts with law enforcement not identifying the person on the scene.
It really, really hurt me to my core.
Beyond the damage to his reputation and mental health,
I thought I was going to lose my home.
Gonzalez says the mistake hurt his family financially.
I had to sell one of my cars.
And his future. He tells us not only did he lose his job at the school when the district found out about the conviction, it took him nearly a year to find a new one at a daycare as an after-school teacher and van driver.
I went to school to teach K through 12, not to work in a daycare center.
His lawsuit says the courts eventually dismissed the case against him, but he says the damage is done.
If it happened to me, it could happen to you.
And now he's desperate to make sure the same thing doesn't happen to anyone else. CMPD, through a spokesperson, told us at this time the agency is not able to comment or provide additional information, including whether CMPD is considering making any changes as a result of this case. Nate Morabito, WCNC Charlotte.
And Nate tells us that earlier today, the city did file a motion to dismiss this lawsuit. In its answers to Gonzalez's complaint, also filed today, the city denied any wrongdoing and said any alleged damages were not the result of their actions, but rather those of third parties, including the person who gave officers the wrong name.
It's the same way with whiskey as it was used according to the record of white supremacists themselves in dealing with people who are called Indians. Sit down, Chief. We're going to have a Thanksgiving Day. We're going to give thanks for all of the wonderful things that have been done for both me and you by our Maker, by the great spirits. And in fact, I brought some spirits with me. It's in a bottle. You never had anything like this before, but you will want it after you get it. It's called firewater. It's full of spirits. It'll give you spirit like you have never had before, Chief.
Arizona's sober living home scandal is becoming a political football this election season. 12 News journalist Bram Resnick tells us why Native American advocates whose communities were hit the hardest by this want to change the conversation.
Who's going to be their voice? Who is going to be the voices for everybody that was hurt by this?
Native American advocate Reva Stewart demanding human accountability for the countless lives devastated by Arizona's sober living home scandal.
How do we keep helping our people if nobody else is going to help? How do I keep moving forward if nobody's going to listen?
For several years, phony drug rehab facilities in Arizona profited off people's pain, picking up substance abusers on the street, bleeding the state of billions of dollars, and then leaving patients, often to die.
No one within our government has been held accountable for creating the system that allowed the fraud to occur, or standing silently by while it infested our communities and destroyed families.
Republican State Senator Corrine Warner of Scottsdale called this news conference to demand political accountability. But that's a thorny issue. The scandal dates to Republican Governor Doug Ducey's term in office.
This fraud was allowed to metastasize largely because the people in charge prior to 2023 were asleep at the wheel.
After she took office in 2023, Democratic Attorney General Chris Mays launched a crackdown on fraudulent sober living homes that preyed largely on Native Americans. According to the AG's office, Mays' lawyers have obtained 140 indictments and 41 convictions. Payments under the Native American Health Program have plunged 68%.
We felt it was necessary to be aggressive because of the amount of fraud that was going on.
Dr. Anthony Newkirk said he and other legitimate care providers are financial casualties of the crackdown.
I want the audience to know that this is a human tragedy. It's a human tragedy. And I want our Native people to know that this is the system that we have to deal with. And we got to start taking care of our own. We have to take.
In Phoenix, Bram Resnick, 12 News.
And now, a word from the president. Damn, it feels good to be a gangster, getting voted into the White House.
The Justice Department's considering settling President Trump's $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS. In January, the president and his sons filed suit seeking restitution from the federal government, alleging reputational and financial harm and public embarrassment as a result of the leaking of their tax returns by a government contractor in 2019. Now, a possible settlement is on the table where the president would drop his lawsuit in exchange for an agreement by the IRS to drop audits of the Trump family and their businesses, as well as the creation of a $1.7 billion fund to compensate people Trump claims were wrongly targeted by the Biden administration. The fund would reportedly be called the President Donald J. Trump Truth and Justice Commission, would be led by a Trump-appointed commission. Trump allies who could potentially file claims and be compensated include the participants in the January 6th attack on the Capitol. The top Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee, Congressmember Jamie Raskin of Maryland, who is also a constitutional law scholar, calls the proposal an illegal political slush fund. Last week, Congress members Raskin and Senator Adam Schiff introduced the Protecting Our Democracy Act to curb the president's profiteering and corruption. For more, we go to Jamie Raskin, Congress member from Maryland. Can you respond to, first, what is being proposed here, this $1.7 billion fund? Who would profit? And then talk about your bill.
Sure. Well, the $1.7 billion political slush fund in the Department of Justice may take the cake in terms of being the most thoroughly corrupt movement of the Trump administration after the billions of dollars that they had been getting through the crypto schemes and the foreign governments. But so let's go back to the beginning. The $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS is completely bogus. It's empty. It's vacuous. There's nothing to it. There was a private contractor who leaked reports of Donald Trump's tax returns that Trump had promised to make public, like every other president had done. He said, I'm going to release my tax returns. Then he said he wouldn't. The IRS didn't do anything, but this private contractor released some of the details, and he's in prison. He went to jail for it. There's no private right of action under the statute, and it's happened to lots of people. So the idea that it's $10 billion that he's going to order the Secretary of the Treasury to order the IRS chief to give to him is ridiculous. There's just nothing there. So there's nothing to trade, but then they traded that mythical $10 billion they claimed to be owed for dropping real criminal investigations into all of the corruption or some of the corruption that the Trump family's engaged in, and then also for the creation of this $1.7 billion slush fund. Well, there are 1,600 people that he's pardoned, and they want a $1.7 billion slush fund, which comes to $1 million a head in terms of the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, the insurrectionists, with $100 million left over of taxpayer money to spread around in different ways. Congress never voted to appropriate that money. We control the power to spend. We never created that, and we never would. There's no way you could ever get that out of Congress. So they're using the judgment fund of the United States, which is for valid court verdicts against the United States or valid court settlements, to simply confer money on their private political militia, their street fighting militia, which went to battle for them on January 6, 2021. And what do you know? Right before this election, they want to shower these people with $1 million a head. I mean, it's just it's an outrage. It's a scandal. It's also unconstitutional because the 14th Amendment says in Section 4 that no money shall go to pay for insurrection or rebellion. Now, that, of course, was in the wake of the Civil War, but it's written in general terms. Basically, they're paying his insurrectionary army.
And you were there, Congressman Jamie Raskin, on January 6th, right, along with your daughter and your now son-in-law, taking shelter from the insurrectionists.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember it well. And this is all part of the whitewash and the attempt to sanitize what had happened. I mean, there were Republicans like Ted Cruz who were calling it terrorism. They lived through it. They saw exactly what happened. And they were basically saying, hey, guys, we went a little bit too far with this. This is dangerous. People died. Officers lost their lives. And now, they're all with Donald Trump and saying it was a day of hugs and kisses and love. It sounds like Woodstock on Capitol Hill to hear them describe it.
So describe the bills that you have introduced.
Well, understand that opposing and dismantling the corruption of the Trump administration is going to be the work of a lifetime for a lot of people in politics. So this is a beginning, and we start with the emoluments clauses, which have been completely, thrown into the gutter here. But what we're trying to do is codify the emoluments clauses to saying the president must report any money he's getting from foreign governments, like take the $400 million jet from Qatar. That's got to be reported within 72 hours, and then Congress must get together and vote whether or not to allow him to accept it or to turn it over to the U.S. government or to return it, because the Constitution says that nobody in federal government, much less the president, can receive a present, an emolument, which means a payment, an office or title of any kind, whatever, the Constitution says, from a king, a prince, or a foreign state without the consent of Congress. And he has never come once to Congress for the hundreds of millions and billions of dollars that he's been pocketing from foreign states. Our America First president, who is the biggest globalist who's ever served in the White House.
New financial disclosure forms released by the U.S. Office of Government Ethics show President Trump made between $220 million and $750 million in trades in the first months of this year, including purchases and sales of securities in companies like Microsoft, Meta, NVIDIA, Apple, and Goldman Sachs. Trump bought, according to Nautas, between $500,000 and $1 million worth of NVIDIA stock a week before the Commerce Department officially approved the sale of some NVIDIA chips to China. The Trump Organization claiming the investments are managed exclusively by third-party financial institutions, and neither Trump, his family, nor the Trump Organization plays any role in the investment decisions. Can you talk about this and stock trading by Trump himself?
Yeah, look, what we know now is that corruption is the whole purpose of the Trump administration. It's not like some eccentric peripheral thing. It's a vast money-making operation. And the cover story is what you were talking about before with Bishop Barber. I mean, they've tried to conscript all of these religious figures to come in to give cover to the fact that they are looting the federal government. The $1.7 billion slush fund that they want to install at the Department of Justice, $1.776 billion, showing you exactly how arbitrary and random it is. They're just naming it after 1776. It's not related to anything that's actually owed to anybody. But that political slush fund is just one of many political slush funds. They're turning the entire budget of the United States that was authorized and appropriated by Congress into a collection of slush funds. So the Board of Peace, for example, take that one. We still don't know whether it's public or private, profit or not-for-profit, registered in the United States, registered in another country. We don't know, but they gave $1.5 billion from the State Department, money that was set aside for disaster relief, to this Board of Peace. And they got $1 billion from Qatar, $1 billion from the United Arab Emirates, $1 billion from Saudi Arabia. It's the same thing with the Venezuelan oil. After that hit on Venezuela, then they created a political slush fund operated, I believe it's out of Qatar as well. Donald Trump is controlling that. So the whole idea is to seize as much of the federal budget as possible to put directly under his control. The whole thing is corruption, and nobody should be surprised that he's engaged in thousands of day trades. We've got to ban individual stock trades by members of Congress, by the president, by the vice president, the whole thing, because they have turned the government of the United States into a money-making operation. You may as well put a Wall Street ticker tape up around the Senate and the House of Representatives and the White House, because that's what they've turned into. It's all about insider information, exploiting insider information to make as much money as possible. Put your money either in a blind trust or in a mutual fund and leave it there, not single stock day trading by people who have all kinds of political inside information.
Let me say something that gets to the very crux of the matter, and this may be offensive for some to hear who are not on the side that we're on. White people, we have been the problem for 400 years.
Say that again.
Let me say it one more time for those of you who didn't hear me. White people, we have been the problem for 400 years.
Do you understand why some people, though, might see what you're doing as racism?
Sure, of course. But I also don't know exactly what racism is. The concept has shifted over the years. If racism is hating other groups of people, I would say we're not racist. If racism is valuing your racial heritage and wanting to perpetuate it, well, then by that definition, yeah, we're racist.
That was November of last year. It's from a story I did on Return to the Land. It's a whites-only community in northeast Arkansas. Now, the man answering my questions is Eric Orwell. He's the president and co-founder of Return to the Land. Now, tonight we've learned Orwell and others are being sued by a woman who claims her application to purchase property there was rejected over race and religion. The plaintiff in the case, Michelle Walker, says she's of Jewish ancestry, is married to a black man, and has biracial children. I spoke briefly to Walker on the phone, who says she's not doing interviews. However, one of her lawyers from Legal Aid of Arkansas said they're proud and excited about the filing. They're co-counseling with other lawyers in this case who they feel are well-versed in this area of law, and they're optimistic about the outcome. Now, the suit accuses Orwell and the Return to the Land of violating various civil rights and fair housing acts. I also spoke with Orwell, who said only this: he's aware of the suit, and he has not been served anything at this time. This is obviously a story that we will continue to track and bring you updates as we get them.
Say what's the word? Tell me, brother, have you heard from Johannesburg?
On Monday, President Trump announced a proposed expansion to the refugee program to allow 10,000 more people into the country, up from a record low of 7,500 refugee admissions. For context, before 2017, the average annual cap for Republican and Democratic administrations was 95,000. But there's a caveat here. Trump's new 10,000 refugees will consist solely of Afrikaners, white South Africans, a group that the Trump administration claims faces racial persecution in their home country. We reported on this story exactly a year ago, when the first round of Afrikaners were on their way to these shores.
The first group of white South Africans granted refugee status by the Trump administration arrived in the U.S. Monday. The group included 49 Afrikaners, which is an ethnic group in South Africa made up of descendants of European colonists.
The United States really rejects the egregious persecution of people on the basis of race in South Africa, and we welcome these people to the United States.
Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Landau last May answering a question from the BBC about why Afrikaners and not people from, say, war zones had been granted refugee status.
The criteria are making sure that refugees did not pose any challenge to our national security and that they could be assimilated easily into our country. And all of these folks who have just come in today have been carefully vetted pursuant to
assimilated easily. Right. Multiple outlets at the time reported that one of these carefully vetted Afrikaners had posted on X in 2023 that, quote, Jews are untrustworthy and a dangerous group. This despite a Department of Homeland Security policy that anti-Semitic activity on social media could lead to a rejected immigration request. But as we've been told, the safe refuge of Afrikaners is an urgent matter.
It's a genocide that's taking place that you people don't want to write about.
President Donald Trump last May.
Farmers are being killed. They happen to be white. But whether they're white or black makes no difference to me. But white farmers are being brutally killed, and their land is being confiscated in South Africa.
There's been a problem with violent crime in South Africa. Let's put that out there first. But this idea that white farm owners are particularly victimized doesn't play out if we look at the police statistics. So where does this myth come from?
Carolyn Holmes is a professor of political science at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, where she specializes in South African nationalism. When I spoke to her last May, she had been tracking the years-long PR campaign behind the white genocide narrative.
A series of activist groups have really made this their central cause. There's a really easy way to make statistics look more powerful, and that's to mess around with who actually counts as a white farm owner, who actually counts as the victims that they're concerned about.
I read one piece in Al Jazeera that even looking at data provided by some of these Afrikaner advocacy groups, the supposed proof showed that just about 60 farmers across all races are killed each year in a country where there are some 19,000 murders annually. That doesn't make a strong case.
No, it doesn't. Full-time residents of commercial farms, regardless of race, are actually statistically significantly less likely to experience violent crime than their urban and peri-urban counterparts in South Africa. These activist communities have foregrounded this idea of white victimization by picking out a very small number of stories and continually focusing on them. They tend to be stories with incredibly sympathetic victims. They say, look at this particularly horrifying case that happened in 2018. And it's like, well, okay, that was 7 years ago. Those folks were brought to trial, the people who perpetrated that. They're all serving time, those that were convicted. This is not misinformation in the way that we've traditionally thought about it, where we can correct it by saying, oh, but that's factually incorrect. I can hold up every statistic in the world saying, white people are not significantly more likely to be targeted. But the story has become so real that it has resulted in 49 people leaving their home and coming to Texas.
We've made reference to some of these activist groups. You call them white rights groups. Who are they?
There's a lot of them. So we have groups like AfriForum. We have groups like the Orania movement. We have more militant groups like the AWB. They historically have focused on things like language rights and self-defense training and neighborhood watch patrols, and some would call it vigilante activity. They've recently pivoted to specifically talking about rural security and quote-unquote farm murders, partially, I think, because it's been so successful for them in the international arena.
And to advance the narrative of this disproportionate violence levied against them, some of these Afrikaner groups have pointed to a COSA anti-apartheid song, which they say explicitly calls for the killing of white farmers. Mm-hmm. The South African courts have weighed in on this. Elon Musk and Marco Rubio have posted about it repeatedly on X. Tell me about it.
Dubula Bunu, right? Shoot the boer is what that song is. And it was a struggle song. It was part of the anti-apartheid movement, that this is a song that was sung in the context of an armed struggle against a white minority regime. So it's very controversial. It's sung sometimes in Xhosa, sometimes in Zulu. And it was particularly brought to the forefront by a politician by the name of Julius Malema. He was then the leader of the ANC Youth League. He sung it at a rally, got a lot of people fired up about this. In 2010, the first time that made a lot of international headlines, there was also a farm killing of a far-right Afrikaner leader, Eugene Terblanche. And so a lot of people sort of paired those two events and said, look, this is evidence. This is a causal connection between singing the song and violence against white people. And it was ruled to be a form of hate speech in 2010, although that ruling was then overturned in 2022. Other folks like Julius Malema, who has now been kicked out of the ANC and has his own political party, has said this is a legitimate part of our struggle history, and we need to be able to honor the people that fought for our freedom.
Of course, the reason that we're speaking is that the Trump administration has elevated the grievances and claims of some of these Afrikaner groups, including AfriForum. How and when did they first get the president's ear?
So in the first Trump administration, a lot of these white rights groups saw an opportunity. And so AfriForum one of the major groups that have forwarded this idea of white victimhood, came to the United States. In 2018, they were wildly successful. They got meetings with people like Rand Paul, Ted Cruz. They posted a photo on their social media of a meeting with John Bolton in the White House. And in probably the biggest PR coup, they landed a sort of primetime spot on Tucker Carlson's show.
Well, now to a fascinating and significant story the media have all but ignored. An embattled minority of farmers, mostly Afrikaans-speaking, is being targeted in a wave of barbaric and horrifying murders.
Best thing that you can do to help us is to talk about this, to talk about it on public platforms, and in that way to continue to put pressure on the South African government.
Just to tell the truth, I agree.
In the wake of that Tucker Carlson interview, we have the first Trump tweet in 2018.
Trump writes that he's asked his Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, to closely study the South Africa land and farm seizures and the large-scale killing of farmers.
What were they advocating for on this tour exactly?
So that's an interesting question, because aside from international attention, they didn't necessarily have a policy prescription that was embedded in these tours. What they said is, we need attention, we need help. Maybe we need some sort of international diplomatic pressure. We need possibly something like capacity building for the South African police forces.
Fast forward to the present, policy did come out of this tour, ultimately.
Yes, with the executive order that outlines this refugee status for Afrikaners. The fascinating thing is that it was met with deep ambivalence by these activist communities that had worked so hard to put this issue item on the agenda of President Trump and his administration.
Another kind of lost in translation quality to all this is that people like Elon Musk, even Donald Trump, have been using the term white genocide to describe these exaggerated claims of violence against white farmers. That term, white genocide, it's pretty taboo in South Africa, right? And it's pretty taboo among the groups making some of these claims, no?
It is. The term white genocide is a kind of third rail in South African politics. AfriForum has very carefully walked a line around never saying those words in that order. And in fact, the only groups that are making genocide-type claims are paramilitary groups in South Africa. They don't command a lot of public support, but they exist. These most extreme claims come from a non-resident population. And in fact, they primarily come from a non-Afrikaans population too. Elon Musk is not an Afrikaner. He is an English South African.
Is it fair to say that white genocide is akin to the kind of white supremacist idea of the Great Replacement theory in the United States?
Absolutely.
This sort of cross-pollination of racist ideology between the United States and South Africa goes much further, though, than white supremacist forums.
It seems like every so often there will be a cataclysm of violence, like Dylan Roof committing mass murder in Charleston, South Carolina, wearing an apartheid-era flag on his jacket. And people will say, what does that have to do with anything? And what I want to say is that this conversation has been happening. It's been happening for a century. The United States and South Africa have been intertwined sort of since South Africa became a single country. And there is this attention by particularly a philanthropic class of Americans, people like Andrew Carnegie, who said what South Africa needs is the same thing that the U.S. South needs. It needs a welfare state to lift up white people, and it needs institutional segregation. And so this took the form of a variety of laws in South Africa. So the Land Act, the Prohibition of Mixed Marriages Act, etc. And all of these were state efforts to define a population of whites that would then be the beneficiaries of welfare state programs in the service of making sure that white people didn't, quote, fall below their racial station.
In what ways did South Africans look to Jim Crow era United States for inspiration on their end?
So one of those pieces of legislation that I had spoken about, the Prohibition of Mixed Marriages Act, which was a bedrock of what was then the nascent apartheid government, has as its first appendix a list of U.S. states, not just in the South, in fact, but across the Union, that had more restrictive covenants on interracial marriage than the one that was being proposed in South Africa. So it was very much a, look, we can't be the bad guys. Look at what they're doing over there. So there's this trading off of respectability, trading off of ideas about how to define whiteness, how to institute segregation across the Atlantic Ocean throughout the 20th century.
These Afrikaner groups, they didn't ask for refugee status. There's no proof for the white genocide, conspiracy theory. What does the Trump administration get from this stunt?
This is a cause that many of his most fringe supporters believe in deeply. In many ways, the Afrikaans community has been made a sort of ping pong ball in the conversation about immigration here in a way that is profoundly dehumanizing. You know, they're not actually interested in engaging with the politics on the ground in South Africa. There is an effort to say, look at these folks who have been victimized when they let majority rule happen. We can't let ourselves be replaced.
Carolyn Holmes is an assistant professor of political science at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville.
One time the FBI and the Secret Service went to see my mother, asking her about something that I was doing. I was so proud of my mother. She said she raised us to protest. And so they didn't get any help there. I don't know whether they thought she was going to take a broom to me or what.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement has a growing arsenal of surveillance tools. The agency's acting director acknowledged to Congress last month that he had approved some agents to use a spyware tool that can access encrypted messages. But as NPR's Jude Joffe-Block reports, many questions have not been answered, and she joins us now. Hi there.
Hello.
Jude, let's start, if we can, by just talking about what spyware is and what it can do.
Yeah, so spyware can remotely surveil what's happening on a cell phone, usually without the person even knowing their device has been targeted. So some of the leading spyware tools use what's called zero-click technology. So if you're targeted, you don't even have to click on a link for the spyware to infect your device and, ultimately access your messages, your apps, your location, potentially your entire phone. And there are many documented cases at this point of governments in other countries misusing this technology to target critics, journalists, activists, as well as U.S. politicians and officials. And because of that, former President Joe Biden signed an executive order a few years back putting limits on American agencies buying spyware that's been associated with human rights violations or that posed a national security threat.
So what do we know about how ICE is using spyware?
Well, during the Biden administration, ICE tried to enter into a contract with an Israeli-founded spyware maker called Paragon Solutions. But that contract was put on hold due to Biden's executive order that I mentioned. Then under Trump, ICE revived that contract. And when that news came out last year, Democratic lawmakers wrote to the Department of Homeland Security demanding more information about whether ICE was using spyware. And last month, they finally got a response. That was from acting ICE Director Todd Lyons. He's going to be stepping down soon. And he did make clear that he'd approved an ICE team called Homeland Security Investigations to use spyware as part of their work disrupting foreign terrorist groups and fentanyl traffickers, though he didn't give a lot of details. And Congresswoman Summer Lee, she's a Democrat from Pennsylvania, told us she was disappointed that the response didn't have more specifics on who could be targeted by this tool, and she worries it could be used against critics of the Trump administration.
We have to assume that they could use it on a wide array of Americans and a wide array of people who are residing in our country, because we already know that, Trump has already attempted to change the definition of what a terrorist or a domestic terrorist is.
And, we've reported here at NPR on how protesters and anti-ICE activists have previously been targeted by Department of Homeland Security with surveillance tools.
And what did you hear from ICE in your reporting on this?
Yeah, I asked Department of Homeland Security about some of the concerns Congresswoman Lee had, and a spokesperson gave a statement saying that ICE uses technology while respecting civil liberties and privacy, and that their methods abide by the U.S. Constitution, including the Fourth Amendment. That's the one that protects against unreasonable search and seizure. Privacy and civil liberties advocates I spoke with said ICE would need a warrant before deploying spyware on someone's phone if they're using this on people in the U.S., though we don't know enough about ICE's protocols yet to know if they are using this domestically or if they're getting warrants first.
You mentioned that Paragon Solutions is the company that ICE had a contract with. What can you tell us about how that company's spyware has been used in other countries?
Well, last year, the messaging app WhatsApp detected that around 90 users had been targeted by Paragon Solutions spyware, and independent researchers found that journalists and activists were likely targeted using Paragon's tools, which are sold to governments. Paragon Solutions then ended its contract with the Italian government, and there's a criminal investigation going on about this now. But that episode is one reason some people have been concerned about a U.S. agency contracting with this company. And as it turns out, that original Paragon Solutions contract that ICE revived is now closed out. And we did hear from DHS that they do not have a new contract with Paragon Solutions. But all this leaves us with lots of unanswered questions. Is ICE done with spyware? Does it still have access to these tools? Is the agency potentially using a different tool that we don't know about? And for now, we don't know, but we'll be working to learn more.
NPR's Jude Joffe-Block, thank you.
Thanks.
This question, why is this stuff happening? The New York Times editorial today. The Trump effect. See, this is what I'm doing with my money, buying newspapers like Dick Gregory. The Trump effect and how it spreads. It says we are on the brink, under Trump, on the brink of fascism. New York Times, all the news that's fit to print, editorial 12/10/2015. I say fascism is end-stage white supremacy. See, just like in Nazi Germany. Fascism, system of racism, white supremacy, determined to survive.
San Diego authorities are sharing more information about the victims and suspects in the attack at a mosque that killed 3 people.
Community leaders say the 3 men who were killed sacrificed their lives to save the 140 children inside the school at the center.
On Tuesday, Imam Taha Hassan, who leads the center, paid tribute to them. There was Mansour Kaziha, who'd been there since they broke ground on the site 40 years ago.
He was the handyman, he was the cook, he was the caretaker, he was the storekeeper. He was everything.
Nadir Awad ran to help when he heard the gunfire.
And both of them, they tried to do something. They were hiding in the parking lot next to the kitchen. They tried to do something to protect.
And then there was the mosque security guard, Brian Climax, who went by Amin Abdullah.
He's the one who stopped them, who slowed them down. If he didn't do what he did, the 2 suspects would have easily access to every single classroom.
His daughter, Hawa Abdullah, spoke at a press conference.
Regardless if you were a Muslim, okay, if you were Christian, if you were Jewish, if you had no faith, he didn't care. He would treat you human to human. He would smile at people he did not know.
Officials also started to share information about writings outlining the beliefs of the 2 teen suspects who killed these men. They met online. Special agent in charge of the FBI field office, Mark Remley, said they, quote, did not discriminate on who they hated. NPR's domestic extremism correspondent, Odette Yusuf, has been looking into materials online that are believed to be tied to the incident, and she joins me now. Hi, Odette.
Hey, Layla.
So what have you found?
Well, I've watched a video that the suspects appear to have live streamed of the shooting, and I've read a 75-page document that's attributed to 2 named individuals. NPR has confirmed that those are the suspects' names, with someone who's familiar but not authorized to speak about the ongoing investigation. And the materials show that these individuals were part of a global white supremacist accelerationist movement. They believed white people are being systematically replaced. They blame Jews for that. They believe black people are genetically inferior. They believe women are also responsible for everything wrong in the world. And what they want, Layla, is to accelerate the disintegration of our social fabric and bring about civil war. I'll say that everything I looked at in terms of these materials was unfortunately very familiar.
Very familiar as in you've seen it before? They're following some kind of script?
Yes, very much so. This shooting recalls the 2019 attack at 2 mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand, where an Australian white nationalist killed 51 people. Many elements appear to be copied here. You know, the live streaming, the type of clothing, the white handwriting on the guns. And the perpetrator of that attack is revered in the writings that I reviewed, you know, along with many other who've committed racially or religiously driven violence.
Authorities yesterday also said that it appears the suspects in this case were radicalized online. Is that apparent from the materials you looked at?
Well, those indicators that the suspects were replicating previous attacks, that certainly suggests that they consumed online content that directed how they executed this attack. But something that was different here is that the writings didn't only pull from pseudoscience and conspiracy theories found in obscure online hate spaces. They also mentioned the fear of Sharia law taking over towns in Texas, a Somali daycare fraud in Minnesota. They claimed Islam is incompatible with the West, and they parroted the Great Replacement conspiracy theory. You know, this is not fringe material anymore found only in obscure far-right forums. These are now mainstream talking points in right-leaning media from Republican members of Congress and even the White House.
That's NPR's Odette Youssef. Thank you for that reporting, Odette.
Thank you.
White supremacy is the sickness.
We have an important follow-up to a story we've been covering this week about an elderly Fort Wayne woman who died after a fight at a local restaurant.
The woman's daughter posted surveillance video on social media earlier this week. Many people were outraged by what they saw. As 21 Alive senior reporter Tom Powell explains, police have now released a video and timeline of what they say happened inside.
Well, Linda and Heather, Fort Wayne Mayor Sharon Tucker says she hopes the video and information that police released from inside the Tim Hortons near Coliseum will, quote, alleviate the uneasiness that many felt after seeing the video online. Will that be the case? I can tell you the woman's family members are still angry tonight.
My mother was wronged in the worst way.
75-year-old Anita Grayson's daughter says her mother's death last Wednesday left her angry and frustrated with a lot of questions.
I lost the matriarch of my family.
Police say they responded to an altercation at this Tim Hortons around 8 in the morning, finding Grayson unresponsive. She was later pronounced dead.
I just called out to God, like, we need to see it. I have to see that. Please show me, because I need to at least know how, why, what.
She says an anonymous person texted this video from inside to another family member. She posted it online. Others reposted, calling for arrests and protests.
You should not enter a coffee shop for a coffee and a donut and come out unalived. That is diabolical.
Police are now releasing the surveillance video and a narrative of what they say happened. Police say Grayson came inside the restaurant to complain about a drive-through order. They say Grayson, quote, berated a teenage employee. They say a 20-year-old employee stepped in and told Grayson to leave. Police say the older employee tried to block Grayson from getting to the teen. But Grayson responded by forcefully shoving her backward and striking her in the face. Police say the worker, quote, moved toward Grayson, swinging her arms in an attempt to strike her. Police say Grayson scratched the employee's face, knocked off her glasses, and pulled out a chunk of her hair. In the video Grayson's daughter released, we see her get up and walk around for a while before it ends. Police say an employee gave her a cup of water, but by the time officers arrived, Grayson was unresponsive.
It could have been your mother.
Grayson's daughter is not satisfied. She says her mom should still be alive today, and she's calling for more action.
That's the elderly lady. That's not how we treat our senior citizens. We be careful with them. We make sure that they're all right. We don't jump on them and attack them and scare them to death.
Now, police say the investigation will be turned over to the Allen County Prosecutor's Office for review.
And the family shares their mom had been seeing a doctor for a chronic heart condition. In their release, police say they understand the public concern, but also say the initial video posted by Grayson's daughter caused a, quote, dangerously false narrative to spread. Well, family members called us after the FWPD released the details of their investigation. They still do not believe the police narrative and maintain their calls for protests. In the studio, Tom Powell, 21 Alive News.
Johnny, I want to tell you something that's very, 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 very important to me. And we've been seeing each other about a month now. Don't ever hit me.
Breaking the cycle. That's what one Milwaukee family wants to accomplish by sharing their story. Helen Clark died in a domestic violence incident near 9th and Nash last week. Her estranged boyfriend then died by suicide, according to the family. This is not the first time the family has been impacted by domestic violence. Helen's mother, also named Helen, died nearly 21 years ago. Her killer, also a romantic partner.
It starts with isolation. Then it starts with that's part of control, manipulation. Saying that it happened a couple of times in our family, domestic violence, we take very serious, okay? There's no way around it. There's no way through it. It's the facts.
If you or someone you know needs help, we have resources posted in this story on the 12 News mobile app. There's also a link to a family fundraiser for funeral expenses.
Would you share with us, Detective Fuhrman, some of your educational background? High school, college, that sort of thing.
I went to Peninsula High School. I did not complete. I got a GED. I probably got...
A GED is?
General Education Equivalency Diploma.
Wow! Hey, yo, drama, hold up, son. Hold on. Stop the motherfucking record.
Right. I dropped out of school. Dropped out, sorry. Got myself a GED. You know what GED stands for? Good enough diploma. You know what GED's bullshit is? Now, let me get this straight. I can make up 4 years in 6 hours.
I want you to Pondy replay, drama. Pondy replay. Let's give him one more chance, man. Run that shit the fuck back.
I got a GED. I probably got...
A GED is?
General Education Equivalency Diploma.
Mm-hmm.
I attended 3 community colleges. I believe I currently hold approximately 47 units college.
What would that be in years?
Close to 2 years.
And what did you study?
History, police science, art.
Okay.
Mark Fuhrman, the former LAPD detective who testified to finding the bloody glove at O.J. Simpson's Brentwood estate, has died. Fuhrman became a polarizing figure in the O.J. Simpson murder trial, and his credibility came into question as the defense raised the possibility of racial bias.
Fuhrman died of an aggressive form of cancer. He was 74. KTLA's Sandra Mitchell here now with a look back at his controversial role in the trial of the century. Sandra?
Cher, even 31 years after the jury returned its verdict, many still react to the mention of Mark Fuhrman. Now, we have learned the former LAPD detective passed away 6 days ago in Idaho. Tonight, I talked with another former detective who was on the O.J. case and Nicole Brown Simpson's sister.
A polarizing figure in the O.J. Simpson murder trial.
Mark Fuhrman, M-A-R-K. Fuhrman.
Mark Fuhrman, the LAPD detective who found the bloody glove and was later accused of planting it, has died.
Well, I was kind of shocked. I didn't realize that he'd been sick.
Former fellow LAPD detective Tom Lang told KTLA tonight he was sorry to hear about Fuhrman's death, and even after all these years, disappointed that Fuhrman never admitted that his use of racial slurs played a role in that 1995 not guilty verdict.
I've seen a lot of the evidence ignored and a lot of personal issues come to the forefront. I think that's too bad.
He never admitted to it or apologized to it, never tried to explain it, but I do understand that there's worth in every human being, so I'm not going to badmouth him one way or the other.
Simpson was acquitted of the murders of his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend, Ron Goldman. And Fuhrman was later convicted of perjury and banned from law enforcement.
Another chapter of Nicole is gone.
it's sad because it's a part of my history and it's a part of my trauma.
Tonight, Nicole Brown Simpson's sister Tanya told us her thoughts are with the Fuhrman family.
He went through a lot. I think LA kind of turned their back on him. A lot of people did. I'm not defending what he did at all, but I just don't think one person should be judged by one bad mistake that they've done in their life.
Tanya Brown told me before she heard the news today she was already struggling because tomorrow would have been Nicole's 67th birthday. By the way, Mark Fuhrman later became a best-selling author and a TV analyst. Micah, back to you.
Catherine, excuse me. Mark Fuhrman discombobulated me so much I was about to say Catherine Massey Book Club. Some of that is because I am so thankful. I am so thankful. Catherine Massey Book Club, I can be grateful for that, but specifically, the Rona, when we were locked down, 2020, when it all first began, and oh man, China to blame, and blah, blah, blah. We were locked in. We could have been complaining. We could have been trading conspiracy theories. We could have been doing a whole lot out fighting in the streets about hand sanitizer and toilet paper. Remember 2000? Woo! Instead of doing all that, we read Jeff Toobin's The Run of His Life. And even old Toobin, we didn't read that book to cape for O.J. Simpson, old racist Mark Fuhrman, want to show some pride, Johnny L. Cochran Jr. under FBI surveillance for years. That's not why we read that book in the middle of the Rona 2020. We read that book because of the Rona. Everybody was on Zoom, including old Jeff Toobin. He just couldn't keep his pants zipped up while he was on the Zoom. That's why we read that book at that moment in 2020. Started off with that purpose, and by the time we got to the end, my bad, Renthal James, I thought you were guilty all these years. Even that little segment right there, I am so thankful, even for that segment right there. And I mean, that's not the end-all, be-all about Mark Fuhrman, but I mean, man, I'm so glad I read that book. Y'all talking about Mark Fuhrman with a GED, high school dropout Mark Fuhrman? That's what y'all talking about? Life got value. L.A. turned its back on Mark Fuhrman. What? What does that even mean? On a best-selling author, mind you, who got jobs on TV? Like, what? My head hurt. And it should not be minimized. Mark Fuhrman moved to Idaho. That might not mean a whole lot to some folks. You haven't been to Idaho. You don't live near the Pacific Northwest like old Gus T, who has been to Idaho. So it doesn't mean as much. Man, in the middle of the Rona and us reading Toobin's book, we supplemented big time. Easily one of my best jobs facilitating a book club. We had Stephen Singular as a guest on the program. He wrote a whole book about the connection between Mark Fuhrman and the murder of a white so-called Jewish radio host in Idaho, Alan Berg, who was killed by white supremacists, and connecting all of that to Tim McVeigh and the explosion in Oklahoma City. As a matter of fact, he's been a guest on the program twice, but we had him on in the middle of our study of O.J. Simpson, and he talked about all of that and saying that all of that in Idaho, which is white supremacists went to kill this dude, that all of that is connected to Mark Fuhrman. All detailed. But the thing that's, even when they go talk to Nicole Brown Simpson's family member, and they did one bad thing. I said, wait a minute, you talking about Mark Fuhrman, who they got recorded bragging about beating suspects to a bloody pulp, U.S. Constitution and all that, innocent till, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to beat you and brag about it. We go out and use the hose to rinse the blood off our uniform. That's the Mark Fuhrman you talking about did one? But Mark Fuhrman who talked about, hey, this is a white woman talking. The Mark Fuhrman who on record was recorded, tape is so antiquated, he would say he was on tape recorded saying, hey, I don't want no females. I don't want no women on the force. They're not even qualified. They all got these old DEI hire women on the force. That's the Mark Fuhrman that you're saying did one bad thing. And that's what I'm saying. Like, the list is enormous. When I just mentioned Mark Fuhrman and O.J. Simpson, I just said all of that was at the center, at the core of how I ended up with those FBI files on Dr. Welsing, Johnny Cochran. The list will continue. But it's all rooted in O.J. Simpson and the stupid bots, racial tension, and, the jury, they just let O.J. And I said, wait a minute. Are you talking about the case where Mark Fuhrman got on the witness stand under oath and was asked, hey, did you fabricate or plant any evidence in this case? And he pled the fifth? That's the Mark Fuhrman that you're talking about? And that's even one where I say, wait a minute. Forget old Tom Lang, too. And they brought old lame Tom Lang on. I'm so glad we read lame Jeff Toobin's book, because I smacked the bot and told him I just said, number one, you talking about Mark Fuhrman who got and pled the fifth when asked, did you fabricate evidence? I said, the case that you're talking about where the jury, they let O.J. off because they had, some sort of soft spot in their heart for Rodney King. And this was their vengeance for Rodney King and the L.A. riots in 92, 3 years previously. Since that's what you're saying, I said, wait a minute. You're talking about the case where the judge, Lance Ito, he excoriated the LAPD and the prosecution specifically about Tom Lang, Mark Fuhrman lying on the search warrant. O.J. Simpson ran out of town all suspiciously, and we think he got lying on the search warrant. And I said, you shouldn't even have had the bloody glove. That's the normal procedure. You lie, which is that you got dirty hands in this process. You lose the evidence. We never should have even had all that. Mark Fuhrman, Johnny Cochran doesn't fit mustard. We never should have had all that because they never should have had the glove. Never should have gone to trial. They don't even mention all that. All that is a matter of record. They don't even mention it. That's why I say, hey, man, you can pretend Mark Fuhrman never said nigger. Don't even need that. Don't even need that for no O.J. acquittal. You're out of your mind to just sit there and talk. Hey, man, these dumb niggers on the jury. It wasn't all black jurors. These dumb niggers on the jury, they were too stupid to understand the DNA evidence, and they were just upset about their cousin Rodney King, so they let O.J. off. Nah, man, that is not what happened at all. You can read the lamest books, Jeff Toobin, and come to that conclusion easily. I changed my mind about O.J. Simpson's guilt. I think we were 3 chapters, because in that book, in the first 3 chapters, they tell you what I just said. Lied on and I mean big lies, not one lie, big lies. Tom Lang, people I just mentioned, Mark Fuhrman, people I just mentioned. Lying saying O.J. Simpson had to run out of L.A. Come on, man. Come on. Lies and lie. If he guilty, why you got to tell all those lies? Good riddance, GED high school. And I said that then because I didn't know this dude is a high school dropout. You couldn't even finish community. You went to 3 community colleges and couldn't even finish. Whew. I said then, wow, what does it mean to be white? I never was ignorant enough to think every white person graduated from Harvard, Oxford, Yale, Stanford. I never thought that, but wow. You can come and destroy. I am of the opinion O.J. Simpson was totally innocent. Some lame GED high school dropout white dude can come and ruin your whole life. If they had the death penalty in California, O.J. Simpson could have got the death penalty for this. From some dropout GED holding, you can't even finish community college? And then once all that's done, I'm not going to talk bad about Mark Fuhrman, which for reals, like Tom Lang, you out there lying too. Who would they say? He who hath not sinned cast the first. So I mean, really, just shut up. They're going to get to the end and then, well, he's got his shame how old Mark Fuhrman was treated and turned they back on old Mark. Like, man, woo, what does it mean to be? I bet you when OJ passed, they didn't say, well, everybody has value. Every life means something. I don't remember them saying that when Riddance James passed. We miss you, OJ. Good riddance, Mark Fuhrman. We miss you, Riddance James. GED. Gus T. Today's date, May 23rd, Saturday, 2026, without Mr. Mark Fuhrman. Context of White Supremacy, to share constructive information. Really, that right there. Reading is more important than watching television, because the vast majority of TV programs on the O.J. Simpson trial, they leave out all of that information. You can watch some of them ridiculous, chunky, 8-hour documentaries and just waste a whole day, waste a whole 2 days. Get comfortable, do some DoorDash and just get you a nice little groove in the couch and do watch, and it will leave out all that information. Reading is more important than watching television. Most of the television, they will lie and have you think, oh, Riddance James, he killed everybody in Los Angeles. He might have killed Rodney King too. Miss you, Rodney King. Few things, make sure we get to invest. If you think the C.O.W.S is constructive, hit the blog racism-notes.blogspot.com. racism-notes.blogspot.com. PayPal button in the top right corner. Beneath the button, you'll see the links for PayPal, Cash App, and Venmo. The Cash App address, cash.app/$the C.O.W.S. Much gratitude to all of the investors who have kept the C.O.W.S on the air 17 plus years. Hopefully we have been accurate more often than not over that time period. You can also invest via the Amazon wish list, listed under Gus T. Renegade. It is linked on the blog right beneath the button, PayPal button. Again, enormous gratitude all of the investors who have nabbed an item or 15 over our 17 years. Hopefully we have been constructive, accurate, worthy of your time and energy. Let's see, that's it. Some of the many news clips to share from this week. Even if I can slip in, so I'd said before, FBI files on Dr. Welsing. Now there are 3 different programs discussing the different batches of FBI files that I've got on Dr. Welsing. I did slip in that, even the timing to literally, I think it was within the last 10 days to get those 100 pages of FBI files on Johnny Cochran which does not cover the period of the O.J. Simpson trial, which stood out immediately to me. And I do not think, and they even said in writing, these are not all of the files on Johnny Cochran. I would bet every dollar I own the FBI was snooping on him during the O.J. Simpson trial, and they would have to be, because they were snooping on, they already got it on record, they were snooping on him during the 70s. They were Geronimo Pratt's trial. They were snooping on him during the 80s. I got those records in my hand. Why would they not be snooping on him in the 90s and the 2000s? That's another reason added where I know O.J. Simpson didn't kill anybody, because FBI would have had that recorded. Lying, all of them. Mark Fuhrman, everybody. Lying and lying and lying. Which is what white people do. Miss you, O.J. Get another apology in there. My bad, even though I didn't watch the trial originally, but my bad for being duped, confused at all about this. And they, yeah, O.J. done stabbed them people up and get it, and oh, he's the worst. Get out of here. Let's see. Going back to the beginning about the reading, man, if you are an attempted parent, there is so much that you should be concerned about investigating before you even produce a black child. With all of the literature where they've been talking about the drops in test scores and reading comprehension. I just said you need to read or they're going to dupe you and have you thinking that O.J. done stabbed everybody in L.A. The children now, I don't do no reading. I wait for it to come on Netflix. I don't do no reading. And I'm telling you, what they got on Netflix about O.J., oh, he did it. He for sure did it. You need to do a lot of that. Go investigate the schools. Do they have black teachers? Can we homeschool? Lots of thinking before you, or just, hey, we'll have a child and it'll be worse because in a system of white supremacy racism, so if it's bad for the white children, it's going to be cataclysmic for the black children who will have no idea. What did he just say? Catch a Mick. What did he say? I don't know what that. I don't do all that. I asked the bot about that later. And promote reading, because see, we can do all that and say, well, yeah, Dr. Wells' show was cool. She say that all the time. Reading more important than watch television. And man, I didn't even know I had to go through those FBI files, which I'm not even sure I've read every page yet. It was so dense. I said that Dr. Welsing worked at the library during college like I had no idea. Anyway, reading more important than watching television, but that needs to be modeled. Now, you don't have to go to that extreme to go get a job at the library. We talked about that as well, right? But, man, turn off the television. Like I said, there's lots of ways that can be modeled. You can have audiobooks that you play in the house, audiobooks that you play in the vehicle as you all are going to and fro. You can pick audiobooks together. You can have reading time where you actually get a book, e-book, physical book, go to the library and pick out some books, whatever. We pick a book and we read together. We take turns reading. You read a little bit. I read a little bit. If you have a, larger group, then hey, we can, everybody gets a little bit of turn reading. And then we can talk about what we read, reading comprehension. Well, we can do that as a group. You can do that as they get older, so you can pick different books. There should never be a time in your life where there is no book I am interested. I mean, that is absurd. I'm not using my brain computer. I don't have you don't have an interest in anything? Because there are books about everything, so you have no interest. Video games, nothing. TV, they got books about all that too, even the silly stuff. So you don't have no interest in nothing. Not curious about nothing. You don't want to learn anything. That is exactly what they want from victims of white supremacy, not using our brain computer at all. Just sit there and turn on the Netflixing and Netflixing and Netflixing. They even said now, in talking in that segment, what to do to correct this problem since it's been going on before the pandemic. They said this goes back to when 2012, 2013, smartphones and all that technology really started to take off, and to the detriment of children, of course, and particularly black children. They said what to do. Do more reading, because they said apparently people aren't really doing a whole lot of reading outside of school. So doing more reading in school, I would say, especially for black parents, more, and having books. I can just say again, most of the residences that I've been to in my life, irrespective of geographic location, if it's black people, they do not have very many books. Now, that's not everybody, certainly exceptions to the rule, but most of the residences that I've been to, and it might just be that all the folks that I go to, hey, you just hang around dumb people. You dumb, you hang around dumb people. That could be. Now, I haven't been to some people's residences where they're college graduates, so, at least white people would say they're not the dumbest of the dumb. But, and white people are to blame, that doesn't make it any better. If you're going to have children, I've been saying that before you even get to the bedroom, hey, we need to start working to get our child's library together, and maybe even that means we need to get our library together so that our child sees us reading. We don't just talk that nonsense. They see us reading. They see us going to get a book from the library or bookstore or both, talking about a book. They see that on a regular basis. My parents value reading. They seem to think it's important. They even try and force that on me a little bit. Like, oh, okay, I'm going to do a little bit. I'll do a little bit, okay. And being serious. And the why, all of this connecting back to racism, we are here. It was said, the teacher, she said that children come here and they don't want to make a difference in the world. That should be blasphemy if you produce non-white children. Like, no way. You are not here to play video games. You are not here to watch television. You are a victim of white supremacy. The only reason that you are here, replace white supremacy with justice. All that other stuff is whatever. It cannot be. You are going to be victimized every day, all the time. Might not even be able to, we can't even send you to school. Reb and Dill might shoot the place up. They might have lead in the water. Who knows? Racist teachers, all of the above. We can't even send you to school. It cannot be, I'm not here to make no difference. I don't have nothing to do with justice. I don't even want to read. What? But that's what you got. The section about the teacher, I just said Hannah, that's the name that she gave, where she said she left, and she said with all the technology and stuff that the children, I don't even want to use my brain computer. The bot will do it. The bot can write it. I don't want to read. The bot can summarize it. Like, man, woo, that would be one. Go to the schools in your district. How do they use technology? Talk to parents in your district. What do they say? How are their children doing? How are they, even beyond the grades and such, like, what do the parents think about, their child? Do they seem like, they're reading? Do they seem like they're on skill? Are they pleased with their child's academic progress? Like, talk to children in your area, about what their experience at the school is. How many times have they had to go to the school for disciplinary problems if they're classified as black? How many times has their child been on the honor roll? Lots of it. These are the types of questions I would ask before you produce a black child, because, man, this is what they've been saying for a while. It is terrible at the school. Even the nurses are bad. We just heard that. Even the nurses are bad and racist. So it's a lot to process before you even, in my opinion, before you even get to the bedroom. If you wait until your child in 6th, 7th grade starts reporting problems with all of this, it is way too late. And even the teacher who stepped out of the classroom, Hannah, left the classroom. She said they cannot answer incomplete sentences. That's something that I have said. We had a listener who recommended, encouraged us, work on your professional writing for the workplace, even for counter-racism purposes. Where I said, looking online, I was seeing people responding to counter-racist content posts about important subject matter, one-word responses, very short sentences. It's not, and it could be people on the phone and all that, but I say, hey, I see people on the phone where they are talking and typing, a mile a minute with their thumbs. They are getting it, texting about all kinds of things, what they saw on TV or gossip or whatever, but it'll be one-word responses, short sentences. It's not not really using your brain computer to articulate any sort of deeper thought or analysis about what the content is, what's being presented. Again, that is exactly what racist white supremacists want. Us not doing a whole lot of thinking, not really using our brain computer, certainly not about anything serious, replacing white supremacy with justice. And in fact, I'll compare it. If it was complaining about a black person, talking about the Super Bowl, a TV program, we would have a lot more to say. Then we could do all our emojis and giggling and profanity and all the rest of it. You don't have to use as much of your brain computer there. The segment correlated, they were talking about how for some of the libraries it's a little bit more difficult to access material. That one did give me a pause. I just was at the library. It's not like I have not been to the library. I was at the library this week, but I did not attempt to check out a book, so I don't know. Have people been saying that as the case, like trying to go to the library to get a book and it's a longer wait time? I guess especially for maybe newer titles. Is it a longer wait time for newer books? Are they having more difficulty accessing material? Maybe next time I go to the library, I'll check to see if that's the case. But I just had noticed that out here. Other folks maybe can let me know. That would be something also that might impact if you're trying to go and get books. If you have children and they don't have them, or maybe, well, I guess school year's ending, so maybe it wouldn't be as much of an impact for students per se, but still for younger people, if you're trying to get books, even for the summer, so your child can keep reading over the summertime, could be a problem. Let's see. I get Dr. Kamal Kamban. I just spoke with one of his offspring. We had one of his offspring as a guest on the program. He passed away about 2 years ago, I think, at this point. But the great Dr. Kamal Kamban, many times a guest on the cows down through the years. One of the points, and I remember this is one of the first points that he raised when I spoke with him, I think even before he was a guest on the program. Dr. Kamban, all the time, he would emphasize, and Dr. Kamban, who was an educator, he was an educator, taught at the college level. He used to stress all the time that the human brain, you are not a, in quotes, adult. He would say until, and he hit the number perfectly from what they said in that segment, that you are not an adult in terms of the biological development of your brain computer until about 32. He said from his experience teaching at college, he said that the behavior, people are very immature. He said a lot of these folks, they probably shouldn't even be in college at 18, 19, 21, 22 because they're still functioning at a childlike level and doing childlike things. They're not ready to do any serious study. He said, my observation, people are not really getting serious and, all right, let's do some serious study and get to the problem until about 32, 33. And in that segment where they talked about the stages of development of the brain computer, that is exactly what they said, 32. And I'd heard the number around 27 connected with tackle football, CTE, all them concussions, where they said that the brain, it takes until about 27 for your brain to fully develop. And I guess they're pushing that out a little bit now and saying until about 32-ish for the brain to fully develop. And then you don't hit the next stage until about 66. Now, if that is true, and I guess they constantly get new information and all the rest of it, but if that is true, that would be even more of a reason. No cannabis, no alcohol, God, no tackle football. Really, from what they're saying, by the time your brain is actually mature, that's about the time that your body should be given out for tackle football, where you can't do it no more, and I got ripped my ACL all these times and my Achilles, and I have to put me out to pasture. That's when your brain should be fully mature, but I got about 10, 15 years of brain damage now. None of that. I mean, if that is really the case, we need hot thinking. Dr. Welsing said that we need more deep thinking victims of white supremacy to solve this problem. And white people they do so much to make sure that our brain computer is totally defective. I just said they put all the lead in the water. Freddie Gray, Wisconsin schools, talked about Milwaukee schools specifically. Lots of black children, they put all the lead in the water, put all the alcohol and cannabis, the mad dog, not just the alcohol, the mad dog, and put all the pollution where the black people live. A terrible thing to waste. We read that one too. Harriet A. Washington, I think we read that the same year as Tubin's book during the Rona, crazy enough. But they do so much to destroy our brain computer. I didn't even mention the school. I mean, you want to talk about corrupting the black brain computer. But the racist school system and all of that, they do so much. The minimum we can do, hey, I'm not going to do anything to mess up my brain. I'm not going to promote smacking black people in the head. I'm not going to promote black children playing tackle football. If we got to do all that, let's do flag. Not smacking a black person as hard as you can. Got to go out and kill somebody. Not going to do no cannabis, not even promoting that around black children or alcohol. And explaining all of this in the context of racism. Very important. Not just we're about being prudish or, some moral, not at all. Racism, whites, and some of this, the biology of protecting your brain computer. This isn't even about morals with cannabis or alcohol. Hey, using this stuff at 10, exactly what white people promote for us, using all of this, like we said, the cookies and cream, why they put all these child names on these products, get us at 13, 14, 15, 16, start taking these substances then, so you'll be hooked for life, and greatly compromise your brain computer, even though there will be hordes of black people to jump out and say, hey, I've been drinking Mad Dog since I was 12. I've been smoking the Chiba, the reefer, since I was 11, and I'm a Rhodes Scholar and a genius. There are tons of black people who will say that. The victims guaranteed qualified. The evidence that was cited at the beginning about the drop in test scores, I do not agree. And I would just say, hey, if black people were really that smart, we would have replaced white supremacy with justice a long time ago. We have not. Let's see. But Dr. Kamal Kamban, perfect in his assessment, 32, and he said he said for people that he has seen, 32 is when, if they at all get serious about, we should be doing something about replacing system of white supremacy with justice, it happens at about 32. He said maybe you get a few outliers, but generally speaking, it's around 32. Let's see. And they use that word refinements in brain activity. That should be happening. I don't think you get refinements in brain activity if you are not using your brain computer, meaning you are not trying to learn new skills, you are not reading, you just want to do a lot of TV watching, Netflixing. I suspect you don't get all those refinements, improvements maybe, to the functioning of your brain computer. I could be there, but I mean, I do frequently hear people use the metaphors like any other muscle. So you could have really big biceps, really big quads. You don't use them. That's what they say. They could be wrong. They had the section in Graham, North Carolina, which actually did remind me of Cameron Graham teenager in North Carolina who was killed in a high school bathroom over a THC vape pen. But this is not that incident. This is Graham, North Carolina, with Kendrick Gonzalez, black male teacher. They don't even have black male teachers, and now we got one less. They said Kendrick Gonzalez, mistaken identity. His childhood homie, Kimardrick Sherrod. So they don't even have the same first name. Kimardrick Sherrod is monsters and monstrosities. That's what Mr. Fuller said, going out committing all these crimes, allegedly. So he gets caught, and he gives the name of his childhood friend, allegedly, Kendrick Gonzalez. Now, I mean, man, come on. Fuller, what is it? Stand by your work. If this is true, the enforcement officers could have lied, but if this is true, if this black male going out committing these crimes and such, and he gets caught, and then as opposed to giving his name, gives the name of his childhood friend. Stand by your work. Fuller said that all the time as well. Do not have no other black people getting in trouble and handcuffed and all this because of you. If you did it, stand up, put your chest out and be proud. Anyway, so he gives the incorrect name, even though that is wrong. He should not have done that. The enforcement officers, you all have all of the technology in the world. You know that criminals, they have aliases and nicknames, and Leroy might give you the wrong name and all this other old nonsense, and Infamous, what they got whole songs, Riding Dirty, not going to have no identification, so you already supposed to have it together. We going to make sure we got the correct nigger. Whatever. Any nigger. Kendrick, Kimardrick, Kendrick Lamar maybe, whatever. Any nigger will get on in here. Let's go. And I'm saying for law enforcement purposes, like, wait a minute. If you go and lock up Kendrick Gonzalez, does that mean you let Kimardrick Sherrod, if he is a monster and monstrosity as a result of the system of white supremacy, you let him continue to go out and commit crimes and mess over black people? Come on. And you snatch a black male educator out of the classroom who's trying to do the correct thing, maybe stop the next generation of Kimardrick Sherrod from going that route so they can be a little bit more constructive, help us replace white supremacy with justice. Snatch him out of the classroom, ruin his life. Now he might resort to crime since he can't pay his bills and such. Come on, man. And there's too many examples of that sort of thing where they misidentify, even with the facial recognition, where they end up getting, whoops, we got the wrong Negro. Whoops, we got the wrong Negro. I'm even trying to think, how many cases do they, whoops, we got the wrong white person? Does that happen? They got lots more white people here. Does that happen where they, whoops, we just made an error. You know, they said the blue eyes, and, you know, you got blue eyes and they got blue eyes, and we just got confused. Does that happen? Because they sure enough make a whole lot with all, like I said, technology and such that they have. They still make a lot of whoopses with regards to black people. And I mean, that is like staggering for it to get to that level where you don't catch it when we go down to do the fingerprinting and all that. Even they could have stuck another charge on Mr. Sherrod. Like, you tried to fool us and give the wrong, information to, because I think that is a charge. They could have stuck another one on that. And now you're going to do an extra year for that, trying to mess over folks and fool us. We didn't get you. We didn't get it. You don't get us. You're not slick. They didn't even do that. They got and even the demotion for Kendrick Gonzalez, the upstanding black male teacher. Now they got him driving the van and teaching an after-school program. I said, what? I know that cannot be the same pay grade that he had before all of this. Driving the van? And I'm not degrading anybody. Transportation is important. Everybody wants their daughter, son to get to school or whatever after school program and then make it back home safely. That is super important, but that's not what he signed up to do. I'm teaching the football team and teaching in the classroom, coaching the football team, I guess, rather. And wow, just black male privilege. He has a lawsuit. I hope he bankrupts Graham, North Carolina. I mean, I know it's a lot of black people there, and that wouldn't be good for them. But I mean, are you serious? Y'all got all these facial recognition and fingerprint technology and all the rest of it, and come on, ID readers and all the rest of it. Plus, you got all of his information. From my understanding, they don't let you go and teach in the classroom without fingerprinting, and you have to go down and do a criminal background check and all that. So, I mean, you could have got to the bottom of this quickly. Come on. Let's see. And speaking of all the lies and corruption, the sober living scandal in Arizona, where they got these phony drug rehab programs. We had a listener some years ago where she said that white people, they will spend more money to pretend, lie, that they're against racism than actually, hey, we're going to try to actually do a little replacing white supremacy with justice. Like, we dedicated to racism. We don't do that. They're going to go out here, and this is even worse. This is not just, we're going to put up some money to pretend we're trying to do right. We're going to correct that wrong, and we dumped all that firewise saying what I just said. Sobriety would be best. Can I do my PSA for Memorial Day weekend, so-called? Sobriety would be best. You can add that in for the sober living scandal. Go out and pretend we're going to help these dark men. Again, they weren't even looking for white people who had substance abuse issues. They said they were targeting non-white people. We're going to go get the folks we'd addicted them to all the mad dog for all these years and pretend we're trying to help them, and we let them die, and then and profited from all of this. Scam on top of scam on top of scam. And then the racism, making racism profitable. Even the scam to make it look like we're fighting racism. Nah, we're letting these non-white people die and making money off of it. In John McCain's Arizona, no less, where they didn't even want a king holiday. What does it mean to be white? And they sound like they're doing the exact same thing as President Trump. He got what he said. He got the Donald J. Trump Truth and Justice Initiative. Call it his slush fund for Enrique Tarrio. All of his cronies from January 6th, they can apply and get their $1 million. What I was even is Brian J. Cole? Remember him? The black male that they accused, said he did the pipe bombs and all that, put him in at the Democratic headquarters in D.C., Republican headquarters in D.C. right before January 6th. Did he get his pardon? And is he eligible for the Donald J. Trump Truth and Justice Initiative? He get his $1 million? I've been unjustly maligned in all this. I saw where his attorneys, they said the same thing that I did. Like, President Trump issued a blanket pardon, full pardon. I remember they got the video and everything. It's not that long ago. Full pardon. That's what he said. Day one. Brandon J. Cole was supposed to be in that. And even some of the news reports that I've seen where they've said, man, President Trump's language was so broad, Mr. Cole might have a case. In my opinion, duh, he shouldn't have even been arrested. Move on. We got other crimes to deal with. And the arbitrary nature of President Trump. See, he said we need $1.776 billion in the Truth and Justice Initiative. Like, what? All of this is your for the centennial and all of that. White people practice racism and generally racist jokes all the way through. And lying to say that white people are victims, that is a key one through all of that. Do the same thing. They can profit and pretend that they are victims of racism. We were harmed somehow in all of this. We were maligned. The IRS audit, even that, they said the IRS, they came and unjustly audited us and embarrassed us, caused us all this public shame and humiliation. The IRS, they are supposed to be auditing black people. I keep bringing that up. Stanford study. Disproportionately, they don't go after President Trump. They don't go after Donald Trump Jr. They go after Leroy, Lakeisha, Wesley Snipes. I don't have to make up no name. Wesley Snipes. They go after black people about that audit. You done cheated us out of our nickels, the federal government, not no President Trump. And they weren't even doing no audit or what have it. Or excuse me, they were doing an audit that was dropped as a part of the agreement. So redact that part. Yes, they were doing an audit of his finances and all that. But I guess, well, I don't know no black people that can get an audit stopped like that. Wow. What does it mean to shut the IRS down? Like, wow. Let's see. And even that slush fund, as they're calling it, the $1.776 billion, that reminded me of South Africa, since they got the connect in there with his refugee program. We had Sylvia Vollenhoven as a guest on the program, black female journalist in South Africa. She did a documentary film called Project Spear. They redacted the documentary. They didn't even want to show it in South Africa. This is like 2012, 2013. The premise of the documentary is that just as Madiba was about to be released from greater confinement, white people in charge looted the treasury. They issued all these phony schemes, just like I said, in Arizona, sober living scandal, but they issued all these phony loans to white people. Say, hey, we issue this money out and you don't have to pay it back. Just as, all right, we're going to be doing away with apartheid, so-called, and we'll transition. We're going to have democracy. We're going to let Madiba out, and we're going to have correct, just rule in South Africa. New day, and whoopee, all that old nonsense. And they loot all this money, and they get rid of their nuclear arsenal. We don't want no armed niggers. And they loot the treasury, steal all this money, and so they can have all these years of talking about, man, the niggers, they're just corrupt and stupid and ignorant. You just should have left white people in charge on this. Well, dang, some of this is they don't have currency, or they have currency problems because of all this looting. And I mean, this was massive scale theft. Project Spear, that was the name of the documentary. Sylvia Vollenhoven, as I said, she was a guest on the program. We talked about all this. You can go back in the archives and hear our discussion, but that's what it reminded me of. If in this environment where you have lots of white people who are articulating that, hey, we have fears, anxieties about white genetic annihilation, and maybe even a reduction in the population or percentage or both in terms of white population in this part of the world, North America, I could easily see this being a response. If it's going to be more non-white people, we will totally loot the treasury so that there will not be funds, infrastructure. Like they were talking about giving out money to remove some of the lead pipes. We think that's going to help. No. We want more Freddie Gray. I just said that about the brain computer. We want more Freddie Grays. We don't want no investment in infrastructure or nothing if it's going to aid non-white people. And if it's going to be more non-white people here, forget that. Let's divest from everything. I could easily see that sort of thinking mentality repeat in this part of the world. They just said they borrow. They take techniques from the Eastern Hemisphere, bring them over here to the Western Hemisphere, and vice versa. Let's see. And even right into the segment with South Africa, when they talked about President Trump has his program where they will allow in these thousands of white Afrikaner refugees, as it were. I said, is there any history like all those decades of apartheid, so-called, that they had in South Africa? Did, I don't know, Ronald Reagan, Jimmy Carter, George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton. Did any of them reach out? Hey, Winnie Mandela, black people of South Africa, y'all are catching a tough time. Come on over here. You got lots of brothers and sisters. Come on and hang out. We got lots of room. We got lots of space in Idaho. Come on, hang out with your brothers and sisters until white folk, Elon and them, Oscar Pistorius and them, until they decide to do right by y'all. Come on and hang out over here, because we're about democracy here. Did that happen? I swear I do not remember no, olive branch to the black people of South Africa who for a long time would have had, hey man, we being persecuted. We victims. They messing us over. Maybe I just missed that part. We did read Madiba's Long Walk to Freedom. I don't remember no extension being offered to Winnie Mandela, nobody else. What I do remember from Harriet A. Washington's Medical Apartheid, different book, is white people here working in conjunction with Walter Basson, working in conjunction for their chemical and biological weapons program, specifically to target black people like Nelson Mandela, Winnie Mandela. I remember that. Matter of fact, that's the last chapter in Medical Apartheid. Voltron effect on a global scale to poison and get rid of the niggers in South Africa. And we can bring that back in. What I just said, we use it over there and then we bring it back and we can use it here because we got too many niggers here. That's what I remember. I don't remember no offering of, some of the niggers from Durban, Joburg. Maybe I missed that part. You all can send me a link if that did happen. The allowing the black people, the white people, sorry, allowing the white people to come over, even though they said that the white Afrikaners are, I think the word that was used was ambivalent. That was not really their goal, which that part does not shock me at all. I think the white people in South Africa have said the whole time, we're not leaving and we're vested and we're staying. So that does not surprise me at all that they would be like, the goal was not for us to come to Texas. Which even that struck me like, what? What? They go to the Cowboys game? I can't even get it together. But that part, I'm not shocked about that this was not the goal. Like we wanted, maybe take some of these niggers. Then we can, we can go back to having white majority rule in number. If you all take enough of the niggers over there, send them to Texas. Maybe that's what they would want. Not, we want to leave and go to the States. This part of it, I could see where they have a program where they just label any white people as so-called refugees, so that we'll bring white people in. We bring white people in. We have fears, anxiety that there won't be enough people classified as white in this part of the world. So any program, anything that we can do to encourage white people, come to the States. Come to the States. It might even get to where they give you money, to coerce people classified as white. Come to this part of the world. Come to the States. Come to the States. We need more white people. I have to see if that happens, the financing part of it. But I mean, hey, you're already seeing. President Trump had even been saying we get all these non-white people from the so-called shithole countries. He had been saying, why can't we get white people from Norway and the Scandinavian places? I didn't know that South African whites counted as like the upper echelon white people. Maybe Elon Musk has done a lot to increase their stock. I didn't know that. That's news to me. The section where they did use that term segregation, white scholar in Tennessee, white female, they did use that term segregation, that they were promoting segregationist, even Jim Crow policies in South Africa. Not accurate terms. And that would be not accurate for South Africa. Not accurate for Alabama. Reminded me of Rosa Parks, who expressed fear. She didn't say that they had segregation. She said, I am afraid of working in a white man's house because I will be raped. That does not sound like segregation. Neither part of it, because, hey, why am I working in your house? We got segregation. Certainly, what are you doing with your penis? We got segregation. Double whammy. But yeah, they don't have no, and the same would apply for South Africa. And even I'm remembering some of our South African guests, they were telling us, one of our guests, she told us that one of her grad students has a whole thesis about so-called poor whites. Now, I don't know if they would count for President Trump's refugee program to say they're persecuted, but poor whites in South Africa, even they had Negro servants. Now, again, what segregation? What are you doing in my house? I got white servants. I got white landscapers. They go out and, make sure my rose bushes are looking great for the summertime and all that. I don't want no nigger in my house putting their hands on my cabbage. Unless I'm misunderstanding. And that's what I mean. Use accurate terms. They want policies that are about white supremacy. Subjugating non-white people. Saying non-white people can't use the beach. That's not so-called segregation. That's white supremacy. Call it what it is. So-called apartheid. Call things by their proper name. The section on the spyware, I have a lot more not that I wouldn't have appreciated that before, but certainly now, with the files on the government spying on Frances Cress at age 19. And even in that segment, I had not appreciated where she said, she didn't just say the FBI, Dr. Welsing, went to visit her mom. She said, and her mom does have her own FBI file, she said the FBI and the Secret Service went to visit my mother. I can confirm that in writing. The FBI and the Secret Service kept tabs on Frances Cress way before she was Dr. Welsing. They probably would be using the spyware on her for sure. May have been using it on her before she transitioned. But to get all in your phone and all the rest of it, all of that is why Mr. Fuller said, hey, there are not going to be any secrets. If it's something that you do not want people to know, do not tell a single person, and I guess don't put it in your phone. But then that's another one. With all that technology, you can get up in my phone and get in my email and read all the encrypted messages. There should never be a case where, whoa, we got Kendrick Gonzalez. We ain't supposed to have you. We supposed to have Kamardrick Sherrod. That should never happen with all the technology that you got now. But the spyware, very important. I would share that with lots of the non-white children are so enamored with all of this technology and glued to their mobile devices and smartphones and all that all day long. A good reminder of that your friend, white people, might be glad you are on the phone and sharing all of the data of your life, every single morsel, so that we can keep tabs on you. Might be something to remind them of as well, and waiting as long as possible before you give your child a smartphone. The section, do some reading. You all could be reading a book as opposed to playing on the apps. The section where they talked about the attack at the Islamic Center in San Diego, Southern California, by these two teenage white supremacists, that they live streamed the attack, just like the white supremacist shooter in New Zealand. It reminded me literally this time last year, it might even be to the day, but this time last year, Gus T went and interviewed two of the non-white New Zealand filmmakers, and we specifically talked about racism, white supremacy in New Zealand, and the Christchurch shooting, which had happened, was that 2019, and talking about that and talking about how they're still dealing with that issue in New Zealand, that issue of white supremacy racism, and that attack and how it impacted the non-white people in that area. Even those who survived weren't killed and all of that. We talked about that in detail, and I mean, I was kind of stunned to be able to talk to non-white people who actually born and raised in New Zealand, but came over here and chatted it up in the archives from May 2025. But that attack, they said that white race soldier in New Zealand revered by racists around the world, even old Peyton Gendron, who went and shot up the Tops in Buffalo, same thing. I got to go and live stream shooting some niggas so that everybody can watch what I'm doing and cheer me on, and then I too can be celebrated a hero of white supremacy and killing black people. Talked about all of that in detail. I think that segment in terms of what happened with the Islamic shooting, making sure that's one I would make sure I explain as an act of white supremacy and deliberately targeting non-white people. There was a school there. I would include that with the other school shootings. I think they said that not only did these two white teens, they revered Nazis, racists, but school shooters as well. Dill, Reb, April is Columbine, so we just missed the anniversary for all of that. But I would explain this incident to, if I had offspring and or other non-white people, act of white supremacy, end stage white supremacy, as Dr. Welsing explained. I would connect this to the other school shootings, these other mass shootings, and that we were told these young white people, they were making improvements. They're not like their grandparents. They're not like Donald Sterling, Donald Trump. They listened to K-Dot, Kendrick Lamar. They had 8 years of, Obama in the White House. So they're, hey, black people being in charge, no big thing, and that's normalized. Whatever. In their teens, and we going out to shoot up the Islamic Center, the school, even, it is the Islamic Center, but emphasis, the school. We're going to kill non-white children and connect it to white supremacy, racism. And same thing, end stage white supremacy. This is exactly what Dr. Welsing predicted, exactly what she was talking about up to the time that she transitioned right at the beginning of 2016. And she said, we are going to see more of these types of instances, especially you have more and more white people feeling as though, oh man, the system of white supremacy is imperiled in some way. Oh man, what are we going to do as people classified as white? Man, we don't even have no stake in the world, and we don't have no power. We might as well. We're not going to be able to be white supremacists. We might as well go out and shoot up the school. That there will be more and more instances just like that, because I think they committed suicide here. They had that white fella. I remember he went in Florida. He went to go do a school shooting it was a historically black college in Florida. He was going to do a shooting there. He couldn't get in, and then he went and shot up the Dollar General. Same thing. Then we talked about that incident in detail. Said this is no count white person, no ambition, no goals. What am I do? I'll go shoot up the black people, and particularly target black people who are trying to do something. They're going to school. I'm trying to do something with my life. I'm motivated, ambitious. I go kill all them. I would process this in just that manner. There will be more incidents of this sort, and white people's conduct. I would expect more of it in just that sort of vein. We've been seeing it. Dylan Roof and Peyton Gendron and all that. She said in that, we've seen all this before. Yes? Yes. Going to continue. Just call it by its proper name. Race soldiers, incidents of white supremacy, and I would be mindful about that out in public, especially any place where, and it's unfortunate because this school, Islamic Center, but school is there, going to kill non-white children. Any place where there is a large number of non-white people, and that might be relative, but I would certainly, anything over a couple dozen, 3 dozen, anything over that is a large number, in quotes, of non-white people. I would be alert, especially apparently if you all are doing something constructive, I would be alert. If you're on the team that's organizing the event, make sure you discuss security. If you're just attending, you don't have nothing to do with putting the event on, great. Be aware, mindful. Where are the exits? How do we get out of here? Anybody look like they don't belong here? The more people are going to be there, the more concerned I would be about security. Talk about that in advance if you're going with a group of people, especially if you're going to have younger people. Talk about all that in advance. And again, same thing I said, find all the exits. This is what to do if something happens. But unfortunately, this is the environment. Heck, you can't even go to Tim Hortons without that ending in fatal violence. So this is the system of white supremacy racism. I say all the time, there is no safety. That's why the workplace things can get bad so quick. There is no safety in a system of white supremacy racism. So kind of have to be honest about that with your offspring and yourself all the time. The segment, speaking of the Tim Hortons now, listeners shared that report with me. Fort Wayne, Indiana, Anita Grayson, grandmother in her 70s. When she goes to get her coffee, goes through. Now, this started at the drive-thru. I will say my thinking about this whole incident may be different if this situation had happened at a different time. But the context of when I'm seeing this situation with Miss Grayson, who again in her 70s, elderly, senior. But this is the second time that I've seen just this calendar year. It's only May. Second time this calendar year where I've seen a black female die. And yes, a black female die. I was going to say be shot, but that wouldn't be truthful. Second time that I've seen a black female die as a result of a confrontation in a drive-through window in 2026. Second time. First time, Chauncey Meekins. Been talking about that, neutralizing workplace racism. Black female, 32-year-old black female in Spanish Lake, Missouri. She was shot and killed by another black female. 20-year-old black female who's now in custody facing massive charges. Life kind of over at 20. But this was all over onion rings. I talked about it in detail. Onion rings. I got to shoot you over onion. Even if these are the worst onion rings in the world, I got to get my pistol. Onion rings. I said repeatedly, I cannot even believe this. And they confirmed it in the report when she got arrested. Onion rings. It was at a drive-thru, so I mean, couldn't be over alone. So this just happened within like the last 40 days. When I get this, and Missouri is not that far from Indiana. Shout to Jim Jones. So when I saw this report, listener sent it to me, Anita Grayson, certainly, she's an elder. I'm of the opinion white people are allowed to be angry about all kinds of. They just mentioned January 6th. White people can go and throw all kinds of tantrums at any age, 70, 77, 107. They can go out in public and be in total rage, armed or no. I've seen this in person. They got lots of videos. I think if Miss Grayson had been a white woman, a white man, any age really, this situation probably would have looked a lot different, especially a white woman in her 70s goes into a restaurant, McDonald's, Hardy, Jack in the Box, whatever, Tim Hortons, and, I got unruly service at the drive-thru, or they messed my order up, or whatever. Oh, man. I think this is handled in a substantially different manner. That said, I am of the opinion, man, in a system of white supremacy racism, we have to grasp, I've been saying this for a while, we have to grasp, man, you could be killed at any time by a black person, non-white person, white person. That is the system of white supremacy, and that has to be in the brain computer when we leave the residence. It cannot be like it. I even said, because I said for both of these situations where the black person died, Chauncey Meekins was the employee, okay? For people who didn't hear all that. She was working the drive-thru at the Steak and Shake in Spanish Lake, Missouri. 20-year-old black female comes through the drive-thru. Whatever happens with the onion rings, customer complains. It's reported that the 20-year-old black female tossed a drink through the window to express her frustration about the onion rings, and Chauncey Meekins threw the drink back into the vehicle, and at that point, she pulled out her pistol and killed Chauncey Meekins, shooting her through the drive-thru window. I said, man, just if it had been Chauncey Meekins not retaliating, don't throw that drink back, She throws it. Hey, this order is done. I close the window. I go get the manager, maybe even call the police, but this order is done. She'd still be alive. And even the young lady might not be in greater confinement. I don't know if they put you in jail for throwing a beverage. Maybe that might be simpler, but it's certainly going to be lesser charges than murder for throwing a beverage. Totally different situation. Just, hey, I'm walking away. I'm over. I'm not killing anybody, or I'm not even going to throw this drink back. I'm not even starting all that. I'm done. This situation with at the Tim Hortons in Indiana with Miss Grayson, now who's in her 70s. This is not young people. She's in her 70s, or at least she's not a young person. I don't know what happened at the drive-thru, but I do know I've had problems with service when I've been out in public before, and I've given examples where I've got bad service. I have left immediately. I'm not going back and forth, and really that's what I would encourage. I think Mr. Fuller said the same thing in terms of really try to avoid, when you're out in public, long back and forth, and we got to get into an argument and screaming and you didn't do it. Really try to avoid all of that in a system of white supremacy racism. Of late, I've just been saying, hey, there are lots of people armed. Period. It doesn't matter if you're correct, you're incorrect, you stole my parking plate, whatever it is. There are lots of people armed. Now you can say, hey, I don't back down. I'm not no chump and you don't whatever. If you are a non-white person, you're already a chump because you're a victim of white supremacy. Period. And all that about the back down and everything, fine, no problem. I make sure you understand, hey, this could be a Chauncey Meekins type thing. Are you ready to die over these onion rings? Miss Grayson's order, I think they said coffee, donuts. I think that's what they said. Are you ready to die over this donut? This is Mortal Kombat right now. We're going to die over this cup of coffee. I've said, hey, avoid eating out. Now, I've been saying that for years. You can check my record. For years, I was talking about the racism. I mentioned two-faced racism because I said, hey, he has a whole chapter in the book about the racism that you can bank on experiencing when you go to the restaurant. He got a whole chapter. We don't want to seat you correctly, or we seat you next to the bathroom, or we make you wait 5 hours for your order. All of it. Or we mess over your order. Like, you want coffee and donuts. We're going to get you some coffee and donuts. All of that. He got a whole chapter on that. So for years, I've been saying, hey, let's avoid going to the Steak and Shake. Working there is different, but still, I've been saying as a patron, let's try to minimize the opportunity for race soldiers to put something in your mouth, put something in your coffee. I've been saying that for years, right? Now, it's a little different to add on. It seems like there are a lot of confrontation. I even played the report where they said the fast food workers are saying, hey, this is dangerous. We are being attacked by customers and they are leaping over the countertop and cussing at us and pulling out weapons and blah, blah, blah. Chauncey Meekins fighting over onion rings. If that is the case, and I just played a different incident where they had a worker, he had a pistol. And somebody came in fussing about onion rings or whatever, and the worker pulled out his pistol and fired shots. So if it is that hostile and dangerous now, just at the restaurant, for whatever reason, I would really try, if you go in and you get bad service, let's ride. Order is done. You can make a complaint online. You can call whatever. I'm of the opinion, whatever it is, should not be. No, we got to have a long, drawn-out argument, shout with the server, the waitress, none of that. I try to avoid eating out if you can. If you have to eat out, I'm a big fan. Make a report to corporate. Find out who the owner is. You can contact them directly. I have done that before. You can get a refund. Sometimes you can get all kinds of goodies. If you go use social media even. Dr. Cam Bond was a big fan of writing letters to the owner, regional manager, higher up, whoever owns the establishment. He was a big proponent of that. You can use social media. They talk about the technology. most folks who own a business, they are very guarded about people going on and social media, going on their website and blasting them for bad service. And, the folks I went in and was treated poorly and I'm never going. Many businesses are very responsive to that. They will figure out what happened and my bad. We will get you a refund and get you some, complimentary gift cards to come in on us for free, and we are going to do right by you and blah, 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 and all that. There are many other ways to handle it that, hey, I'm not going in this right. I'm even, for this situation where Miss Grayson, where she went in allegedly to question them about her drive-through experience, if Miss Grayson had been 22-year-old Leroy, she's 72-year-old black female, if she had been 22-year-old Leroy, or me, goes in and I'm mad, y'all done messed over my order, man, there could have been off-duty security, off-duty enforcement officer, on-duty security, or George Zimmerman. What are you doing? You don't talk that way. Wait a minute. And that has happened over and over. I just forgot they had in Wisconsin, my favorite state, a young black boy, 16. I said 22. He was 16. He was accused of going in an establishment. I think they said he stole an orange juice or something. He got choked to death on the spot by white civilians. They didn't even work at the store. They weren't security. I didn't even see no reports where anybody said that the 16-year-old, that he had a firearm, a machete, a fingernail clipper, no weapon, nothing. Just reported that he stole an orange juice, which I didn't think was a capital offense, but they choked him to death on the spot and didn't even arrest anybody. That's kind of what I would expect. And this is like a recent, this isn't no, you went way back and got some civil rights era case. No, I did not. Unless you think civil rights era is like 2013, 2016, because this is a pretty recent case. They just had some sort of, you want to call it justice, if you want to put a small J on it, and resolved all of this. But I mean, this just happened. That's the type of thing that I would expect to happen in a system of white supremacy racism. You are never thought to be justified. We, particularly if you're classified as black, but non-white people, period, especially if you are dark, classified as black, you are not allowed to get uppity in public. You are not allowed to be loud in public. Generally, you are not allowed to get rowdy with white people in public. I think the servers, even though they said they were young, one was a teen, one was 20 at the Tim Hortons, but they were white. You are not allowed to get all that lip and I don't care what we did to your order. You don't come in here and get mouthy and all that. That's the system of white supremacy racism. So I know that it is frustrating being a victim of racism, but I would not encourage, if you're out at a restaurant, any sort of establishment, you're out in public, I would not get into any sort of loud back and forth verbal dispute. If you get poor service or whatever it is, if you can't resolve it, in a quick, hey, this was wrong, blah, blah, and they're not willing to do the correct thing, this is done. Let's get out of here. Call corporate, call management, resolve it later. If you can talk to your bank or what have you, get it taken care of later. But I've just seen where too many, especially of late, and when I say of late, last 5 years, market from COVID, especially because over toilet paper, hand sanitizer, parking places, something real, onion rings, the most trivial things. I got to pull out my pistol and shoot you about 15 times. And particularly for black people. So, that being the case, I was at any age, it is a tragedy. I'm certainly not blaming Miss Grayson at all, but I'm just saying, system of white supremacy racism, you do not expect correct treatment, especially at the restaurants. You do not expect correct treatment. Try to avoid, I know we love going out to eat and all that. Yeah. Try to cook for yourself. Make your own coffee. If you go out and you get poor service, avoid having some sort of a long verbal skirmish that could escalate wildly in a matter of seconds. We did a whole program. Black groups, males and females, like 4 of them. They went out to eat, restaurant. Could have been Tim Hortons. Customer was sitting next to them, white woman, flicking her hair on them. Within about 5 minutes, police got to be called, charges filed, brawl ensued, glass broken. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. I think I put that in the time. About 5 minutes, your life could be over. Now we talking about, oh my God, am I going to be fired? Oh my God, am I going to have a police record? Same thing. Hey, people could have been armed. Could have even been worse than that. Am I going to have to go to ICU? Intensive care unit. Take that serious, man. System of white supremacy. You could die. If you are classified as black, you could die in the next 5 minutes over nothing. That's the way this system is set up. Black life is worthless. You could die over onion rings, man. Coffee and a donut. You have to have that in mind, like at all times. Fuller talked about that, and I just think because we don't, we do not understand the system of white supremacy racism. We do not. We do not. We are in a very vulnerable position, and anything could happen to us, especially once you are out in anything could happen to us. So I cannot say it enough in enough different ways, man. You got in public, really try to avoid any sort of the mistreatment is going to be there. I get it. It is very upsetting. I experienced it myself all the time. And this is not just Gus T talking. I've had these exact experiences. I've talked about them on the air. I can remember going to my favorite grocery shop, had a black worker at the store who was extremely nasty and hostile to me. I did not go, you don't talk to me, and who do you think you are? I did not do any of that. In fact, I came on the air and I told you exactly what I said, which was, okay. And that's all I said. I got a refund for my purchase. I did exactly what I just told you, and I wrote a very stern letter to management, and she no longer works there. Now, that could have happened, not happened, didn't matter, but there was no escalation. I didn't have to go to jail. No blood had to be cleaned up. Nobody was in a headlock. None of that. No shots fired. None of that. She went home safely. I went home safely. That's what you want. Everybody goes home safely. You're going to have, the mistreatment is going to be there because that's the system of white supremacy. But you do not want to die over onion rings, a donut, a parking place. Just saying. And like I said, I probably wouldn't have thought this way. Chauncey Meekins just died, was killed, very similar, in a drive-through, literally, in a drive. And matter of fact, I went on to the bot and I said, are there any other incidents? I mentioned these two, Chauncey Meekins, Miss Grayson's, I put their name in. I said, are there any other incidents where someone has been killed in a drive-through since 2026? And the bot said, yes. Put the news report up, and damn it, if the other person killed in a drive-through this year, a black person as well. I'm not saying don't go through the drive-through, but man, I am saying it is nothing to kill a black person. French fries, cheeseburger, whatever. Keep that in mind and really minimize, though, even with other black people, because that does not make you safe either. Minimize that. I kind of thought this could happen. That does take some maturity, and that does take kind of accepting that, hey, this is the system that we have, and most of us haven't done that. We think we got a democracy or whatever it is, but no, that's not what we have. We're in a system where you could be shot and killed over a batch of onion rings like right now. Looked at me funny, stepped on my foot, whatever. Terrible. Miss Grayson, terrible. Condolences to her family out in Indiana. Again, shout to Jim Jones. Even I wrote the names down because the age thing, that really doesn't matter in a system of white supremacy. It really doesn't. We had, I'm talking Seattle, William Wingate. Remember that case? That got a lot of attention, even though that's a local one for Seattle. That was a black male veteran. He had he had a walking cane. He's 69. White woman police officer, SPD, Norm Stamper, hopped out her vehicle, and they got this on video, hopped out of the car. What are you doing walking around here? Are you trying to rape white women with that cane? Give me that cane. Get in the car. They got this on camera. He was a veteran, Mr. Wingate. I remember Katherine Johnson. Remember that one? She's 92 years old in Atlanta. Police accidentally shot her and then sprinkled crack on her. She 92. They sprinkled crack on her. I remember that. I could have filled that list out as well. Being elderly does not mean anything. If you are black, it does not mean anything at all. We will snatch you up, walker, cane, wheelchair, glasses, whatever. System of white supremacy. Negras is negras. 70 to 107. Let's see. The segment from Milwaukee, I mentioned Wisconsin is my favorite state. They had 2 generations of black females who were killed by their black male partners. First time, last time. I could have thrown them. And that was like, even the younger daughter, the younger black female, they reported that the black male who killed her allegedly took his own life afterwards. We do not qualify for mental health. First time, last time. Like, wow. Cannot say that enough there. So conflict is promoted amongst black people. I think I said last week, is that what it is? Everybody leaves the house. Chud the builder. Everybody leaves the house to get in conflict with black people. Is that what we have? I said that last week. Everybody. Chauncey Meekins was killed by a black person. You can even hold that up now. There were 2 incidents that happened recently where a black person got killed as a result of, or a black person died, I'll say, as a result of a drive-through dispute. Now, how many of you all knew about Chauncey Meekins, other than people heard me talking about it on the cows? She ain't no dispute on that one. She got shot and killed. You at least got some dispute about now, was Miss Grayson killed and medical and she's 72 and all that sort of. Ain't no dispute about Chauncey Meekins. She got killed. Everybody, that's what I said last week. Everybody leaves the house looking to have conflict with black people, consciously, subconsciously. That's how we're trained. That's the music. That's the culture of white supremacy racism. Conflict with black people. And enjoy, look forward to it, generally speaking. Having that in mind as well, I did not leave my house looking for no conflict. I left trying to get a cup of coffee. Then whatever my errands were. That's my goal. I'm going to do that. I'm not getting sidetracked to get into no conflict and got to shout and fisticuffs and MMA, choke somebody. I didn't leave the house to do all. I say that all the time. And now you really got to have that in mind. And again, it's not, I'm encouraging people to be a chump and back down and be cowardly. Hey, you got a whole lot of people with an AR-15. I did mention the shooting at the Islamic Center. Okay, so if you didn't leave your house armed, I got my body armor, I'm ready to do damage. I got 3-4 clips. I wish you would. Or, if you didn't leave ready for all of that, I was prepared to do Mortal Kombat, take a little gunfire and all. Hey, that was not on my agenda for this here Saturday at all. I'm trying to get ready for the Memorial Day shindig, not the shootout. If you didn't prepare for all of that, man, de-escalate, exit. That's what it should be about. And with the thought in it, hey, there are people, they left their residence conflict. In fact, I'm going to live stream my, ain't that Chud the Builder? Ain't that Christchurch? That's what they just said. I left my residence prepared to live stream getting into maybe even I get to kill somebody's. That's the environment that we have. Acknowledging that if that's not you, like, hey, I didn't leave with no body armor. I left with a recyclable shopping bag. I left with a reusable coffee cup. If that's how you left your house, hey, I am not looking for no beef. I did not come out here looking for no duel, no showdown at noon with a black person or none of that. Defend yourself if you have to, but I mean, woof. It is dangerous. And just the gas prices alone, with people with all the anxiety and stress that they have, and they go to the gas and, I'm ready to do something. Who are we always programmed to do something to? Who are we always programmed to blame, and I got to go upside? That's why Chauncey Meekins, I think, shot dead over onion rings. You can add Miss Grayson to that one as well. It's in her 70s. Disgraceful. Anyway, you can add all that to, again, Gus T for years has been saying, hey, let's try to minimize all that eating out. We can eat more healthful foods and everything. Make our own food. And if you got to go out, even the body even said, hey, if you got to go out, maybe use the app so you can you don't go through the drive-through. You don't have to go through the register. You can minimize having contact with anyone. You can just go in and boop, scoop your order up and leave. Maybe do a little bit more of that. That way you don't have to be boxed in to the drive-through either, because they were saying that's kind of dangerous. Also, people going and doing armed robberies on the drive-through, saying maybe just you go and pick it up and go. That way you have to be there a very limited amount of time, and you probably don't even have to stand in line. Dangerous times. The plantation is not safe. That said, I will update for programs for the coming week, project starting at the beginning of June that I'm super excited about. White supremacy, race, paramilitary white supremacist operations right here in Seattle, or I guess I should say Seattle area to be precise. In the Seattle area, I'll say. Paramilitary white supremacist operations right here in the greater Seattle area. So looking forward. That's about 10 days for the start time. So we're looking forward to that. But check social media and such for updates for broadcasts during the week. I think I forgot to even say I got a chunk of Mr. Neely Fuller Jr.'s employment record at the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. I thought it would be a hoot on one level just because he was pretty constructive, but he was also pretty funny, Mr. Fuller. And I thought it would be hilarious just to see how counter-racism pops up in his personnel record, because he had said that he talked about racism on the job. He had said that he had some of his coworkers ask him about his book, the code book, on the job. So I said, oh my God, that would be hilarious if that pops up in his personnel record. He worked at the Bureau of Engraving and Printing for decades, so it is robust. So I've not had an opportunity to read all of that either, but I can say one interesting tidbit that popped out to me in looking through it. I did not know, and I guess other folks maybe, I've just been slack in my learning or paying attention or asking enough questions while he was with us in the physical form, but I did not know Neely Fuller Jr. was an employee at the United States Postal Service. Did you all know that? Did he talk about that? I never heard him say a word about that. I don't think I ever heard anybody else say anything about that. I mean, not that it's just, I did not know that. I said, wow, like, I don't know if he did like actually delivering mail, but like if Neely Fuller Jr. was bringing mail to my house, man, I would be waiting outside every day. What in the world? Like, I was even trying to process, like, dang, this was late enough that he would have been working on the code book. So it would be like kind of codified, just younger version, but codified Neely Fuller working at the post office. Like, I did also think like, ooh-wee, that is exactly why white people despise the post office. Like, getting no count. Niggers like Neely Fuller Jr. giving them a toehold so they can get a federal job and benefits. They sit around and finance. We federally subsidizing their counter racist exercise on the sly. Oh, I hate that. We got to shut the post office down. That is exactly why. Like that can get a toehold. But is that, am I ignorant? Am I the only one? Like, did everybody know that but me? That Mr. Fuller worked at the U.S. Post Office before he went to the Bureau of Engraving and Printing? I don't know. If that is new information, that was new for me too. So hey, still learning. But I'd never heard him talk about that before at all. Maybe that was, I mean, so short compared to his time at the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, it would make sense. But that is a fun tidbit for the day. That will do it for our 3. We did have Dylan Roof's name mentioned this week. Not last week, but this week his name did pop. Actually, we had he and Peyton Gendron, 2 different race soldiers, both mentioned this week. Probably more of them to come. So we'll have even more names to memorize and add to our list. That said, good riddance, Mark Fuhrman. That would even be one right there. Lame Mark, like, even what do they say? Mark Fuhrman is dead now. What did they say about him? That he's passed on. What did they say about O.J. Simpson when he passed? What did they say about Mark Fuhrman when he passed? Only one of these people was convicted for a crime based on the trial in 1995. GED, high school, really, high school and community college dropout, because he said he went to 3 and didn't finish none of them, and still ruined O.J. Simpson's life. What does it mean to be white? If you did not hear the book club session, that could be one right there. You can go back. I did my part with the cows. You and your children, you could listen to the Catherine Massey Book Club or even participate. But you certainly could go back and listen to Jeff Toobin's The Run of His Life. Wow. I went because I was trying to find the segment where we talked about Mark Fuhrman having a GED, and I was hearing the introductions to the different segments for each week. Oh my God. Just the trial itself. You can go back and watch the trial to see Mark Fuhrman's performance on the witness stand. That in and of itself it will hold your attention for sure. Man, we included the section where Johnny Cochran, the late who was under FBI, they were tapping his phone for decades, it seems. But Johnny Cochran, Christopher Darden, get into it with a witness over sounding white. Oh, I had forgotten all about that, and they took up so much time. I am so glad I, for years, and particularly on Saturdays, have sounded just like the great Johnny L. Cochran Jr., who, man, objection. What do you mean sounding white? There is no such thing as sounding white, sounding black. That is racist. You're promoting stereotypes. Oof, man, I cannot believe that, in addition to the race card and all the rest of it. Wow. The O.J. Simpson trial is a master study in racism, white supremacy, what it is, how it works, even sounding white. Love it. Excellent work. Reading more important than white. In fact, hey, Memorial Day weekend, I'll be nerdy, I'll be prudish, as opposed to going out where you can get into a shootout at the drive-thru because you got a cold cheeseburger. You could stay in and read. Reading more important than watching television. We need high-functioning brain computers. Say that, especially if you are under 32, you do not, should not be out drinking, consuming no Mad Dog, Crown Royal, Hennessy, vodka, none of the above. Your brain computer is way more important than a few hours of fun where you could end up with a DUI or something else not constructive. We need high-functioning brain computers for non-white people, victims of white supremacy, to be on our assignment. Solve this problem. You can't be them children who say, hey, I'm not trying to make a difference in the world. No. We have to be about producing justice, or we'll just get more of the same and sit around and mope and complain. Miss Grayson died at the restaurant. They shouldn't. We'll be talking about that for the next 1,000 years. That's it. Creator, we ask, remind us, stop saying not all white people are racist. Stop name-calling people classified as black. They might have an FBI file just like Dr. Welsing. Johnny Cochran, Neely Fuller Jr. It has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cal signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed. I'm a victim, brother. No problem. You're a victim. Man, I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning. Shut up. The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.